It all started the day the world collapsed, after humanity's greatest heroes were defeated by the invaders. Amid the tragic ruins, only the last two warriors remained, struggling to breathe. The holy swordsman Xenon Glorious, his heart filled with despair, wondered if they were truly the last survivors. The sorceress Aerith sadly confirmed that all their other comrades had fallen. She lamented that even their strongest allies couldn't stand against the enemy's destructive power. Determined to keep fighting, Xenon told Aerith to just focus on supporting him. The swordsman drew his giant sword, clearly preparing to go all out. Xenon aimed for a single, precise strike. Aerith warned that even with everyone joining forces, they couldn't defeat it. But the warrior stubbornly refused to back down. He began executing a powerful sword technique, channeling intense light energy into his blade. With absolute focus in his eyes, he activated the final form of his fighting style, radiating a terrifying, brilliant golden aura. Looking at that massive surge of energy, Aerith realized her companion had zero intention of giving up. Xenon leaped forward with his blazing sword, charging straight at the giant monster clad in black armor. The monster reached out a giant hand covered in red flames to block the hero's blinding attack. Xenon gritted his teeth, enduring the terrifying pressure of the enemy's flames trying to burn him to ash. Despite encountering immense resistance, the warrior persevered, pushing his strike through the opponent's sea of fire. He slashed right into the monster's sturdy armor, cracking it under the holy sword's might. Knowing he needed more power to overcome the enemy, Xenon desperately called on Aerith for support. The sorceress answered quickly and began casting support magic. A blue aura surrounded her body as Aerith created magic platforms in midair to help the hero gain momentum and boost his attack speed. The monster landed a devastating blow onto the ground, but Xenon successfully dodged it by jumping high off the magic platforms. He used every last bit of his strength to soar into the sky, preparing his ultimate move. Letting out a battle cry, the warrior focused all remaining holy thunder into his sword of light. Letting out a battle cry, the warrior focused all remaining holy thunder into his sword of light. Aerith stood in awe at the terrifying power of that technique, believing they might actually have a chance to win. Yet, she panicked when she saw the monster standing completely unharmed after the strike. Even when facing such absurdly monstrous resistance, the swordsman refused to stop and kept trying to attack. Even when facing such absurdly monstrous resistance, the swordsman refused to stop and kept trying to attack. Worried, Aerith screamed in panic, warning him that his body structure wouldn't hold up if he kept pushing himself like that. Despite the warning, Xenon insisted on fighting, trying to muster all his remaining energy. Realizing her friend's reckless determination, a look of grim resolve washed over the sorceress's face. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a mysterious item she had kept hidden. The young girl summoned a prison of light that completely bound Xenon, leaving him utterly bewildered. Aerith explained that he was the last hope to save the world, so she couldn't let him fall here. Aerith explained that he was the last hope to save the world, so she couldn't let him fall here. She said she was entrusting everything to him because she believed without a doubt that he could change this terrifying fate. The sorceress then pulled out a golden pocket watch, a magic artifact passed down through generations in her family. A massive red magic circle appeared above them as she warned him that there was no time left to explain. She asked Xenon to promise that the next time they met, he wouldn't let those bastards win. The watch began to glow intensely while the hero demanded to know what she was planning to do. The sorceress said she was putting the fate of the entire world in his hands, but the swordsman begged to be released so he could keep fighting. The magic circle activated right in front of Xenon, engulfing the hero in a powerful, mysterious beam of light. With tears in her eyes, she bade farewell to her companion, offering a sad yet accepting smile. A massive beam of blue light shot straight into the sky, marking the activation of the ultimate magic. The expanding energy destroyed everything around it during the casting process. After the blinding burst of light, the mysterious pocket watch fell onto the desolate, crack-riddled battlefield. The golden artifact lay on the barren ground, completely ruined after the fierce battle. Aerith collapsed to the ground, extremely weak, coughing violently as she tried to stay conscious after using the artifact. Looking toward the horizon, the young girl let out a faint smile as she realized the teleportation magic had succeeded. That was the ancient's mysterious watch, a legendary item capable of altering reality and causing reincarnation. Xenon's soul drifted through the infinite void, still hearing his friend's final words of hope. Aerith said a quiet final prayer, hoping he could change the chaotic reality of that world. Collapsing onto the ground with her body covered in wounds, the young sorceress prayed that her desperate wish for salvation would come true. Amid a massive explosion, in her mind, she expressed her desire to win his heart in their next life. The scene shifted to a mansion. The warrior woke up in a panic, shouting his companion's name inside a grand palace during the day. Now possessing black hair, he stood up in confusion on a luxurious bed. Feeling a sharp pain in his head, he looked around the opulent noble room and realized this was definitely the effect of the time-traveling artifact. The young man looked at his body, trying to make sense of what had just happened to his reality. Right at that moment, a young maid walked into the room looking slightly alarmed and asked if anything was wrong. He ordered her to fetch his weapon so he could get back to the fight, but she assumed young Master Noah had just woken up from a nightmare. Confused by being called a different name, he asked who she was, and the young girl introduced herself as Lydia, his servant. The young man gripped his own wrist, realizing the texture of his skin was completely different. He was utterly shocked as he stared at his hands, knowing for a fact this wasn't his original body. The young man wondered if he had possessed someone else's body or if something even more horrific had happened. He asked her directly where they were and who he was, making the maid extremely anxious about his behavior. Lydia took a step back, suspecting he was talking strangely because of a delirium-inducing high fever. Unable to hold his patience any longer, the young man grabbed her shoulders, demanding immediate answers to his direct questions. She revealed this was the Daskul estate and that he was the fourth son of the family, known as young Master Noah Daskul. When asked about the kingdom's calendar, she replied that the current year was 850. The warrior realized the artifact had sent him back into the past, 10 years before the apocalyptic invasion began. Even worse, he had reincarnated directly into the fearsome Daskul family, the sworn archenemies of holy swordsmen like him. Just then, a knock came at the door announcing a visitor who identified herself as Selena. Another maid entered the room carrying a bowl, saying she had brought medicine for the young master. She mentioned that Lord Skull had prepared this dose out of concern for his frail health. The young man stared at the bowl of medicine, with deep purple eyes full of suspicion. He analyzed the red liquid, and began to suspect something was horribly wrong with the medicine's ingredients. With a swift slap, he knocked the bowl away, sending it shattering across the floor and scaring both maids. 3 houseguards rushed into the room with grim expressions. Noah sharply demanded to know who they were. The squad captain said they heard suspicious noises and came to check things out. The long-haired guard observed the situation with a cold, calculating gaze that didn't go unnoticed. He scolded Noah for wasting Lord Skull's kindness and warned that he would bring a new dose immediately. Noah sneered at the word medicine, prompting the guard to threaten physical force if he continued to insult their master. The young man instantly dared the guard to drink the liquid himself, openly calling it out as poison. Thanks to his past experience and power, he knew holy energy naturally repelled malevolent chi, and the color of this medicine confirmed it was tainted. Realizing his cover was blown, the captain stated he would have to force him to drink it. Noah laughed arrogantly, realizing their fake mask of loyalty had finally slipped off. The young man remarked that these guards would make great punching bags for him to get used to his new body's reflexes. With a provocative glare, the warrior warned that he'd gladly play around a bit with these traitors. The captain ordered 2 of his subordinates to step forward and restrain the young master by force. The 2 lackeys immediately obeyed and advanced toward him under the worried gazes of the 2 maids. One of them charged forward to grab Noah, but the young man was already set to counter. He dodged nimbly and delivered a powerful kick straight to the first guard's stomach. The guard gasped for air, flying backward and slamming hard against the wall. Sensing the weight of the blow, the second guard charged in a rage, swinging his fist, but Noah ducked underneath with incredible fluid grace. Taking advantage of the opening, he landed a sharp, flawless uppercut right on his opponent's chin. Seeing both men collapse, Noah realized this new body was still weak. He couldn't knock them out completely just yet. He decided he would look into the motives behind this poisoning plot later. As soon as the mess was cleared, the captain ordered the remaining guards to draw their swords and finish him off. No longer worried about hurting Noah, the hero prepared to take the fight seriously. But he was caught off guard when something strange appeared right before his eyes. Information panels displaying the enemy's stats and abilities floated in midair as they yelled for him to surrender. Noah was astonished as the appraisal window popped up, revealing the attributes of those around him. He wondered where this rare skill came from, while casually nodding to himself that his opponent's skill level was remarkably low. 2 guards charged in to attack, swinging their swords downward, but the young man dodged them smoothly and easily. One couldn't react in time as he saw Noah's fist flying toward his face at terrifying speed. The young man threw a heavy backspin kick, easily knocking his opponent to the ground. Capitalizing on the fallen enemy, Noah snatched a weapon from one of the guards and gripped the sword tightly. Seeing this, the remaining guard charged head-on, but Noah blocked the incoming strike with his new weapon. The young man skillfully pushed the traitor back, leaving the 2 maids in total awe of the display. The captain offered a sarcastic compliment on his strength. Noah taunted him to stop standing around and make a real move. Suddenly, Noah's eyes widened as he felt a dangerous, drastic shift happening within his own energy. A deep purple mist began emanating from his body, exposing the terrifying presence of a dark energy core. This was the signature energy source belonging to the formidable swordsman of the Dazkul family. By contrast, a holy core was a divine source of light that belonged to his old, glorious bloodline. Under normal conditions, these two opposing forces could absolutely never coexist within a single warrior's body. The captain burst out laughing upon seeing the dark core wild and spinning out of control, then decided to drop a terrifying secret on the young master. He revealed that the previous medicine was actually a poison tailored to overload dark energy. The villain explained that fighting had triggered the chaotic energy flow, which would destroy Noah from the inside out. Realizing the danger as his body stood on the brink of collapse, the hero decided to gamble everything on a desperate bid for survival. He attempted something completely unprecedented, controlling two opposing energy streams inside his chest. At the same time, he used the purifying power of his holy core to suppress the violent surge of dark force. The captain mocked the hero's desperate effort and prepared to unleash his first dark technique. The villain rushed forward like a blurry red shadow, launching an attack so fast it seemed to slash right through space itself. Noah stayed calm and focused, tracking his opponent's movements despite being under intense pressure. He raised his sword at the perfect moment, parrying the surprise attack and sending out a massive shockwave of energy. The villain was stunned that the young master could react in time to an invisible strike powered by dark force. Enraged by the block, the guard called him weak and told him to know his place. Noah cast a ice-cold glare, showing he was completely unbothered by meaningless insults. The young man swept his sword in a flawless circle, generating a shield of brilliant golden light around himself. His opponent retaliated by gathering a huge mass of dark aura and blasting a destructive strike straight toward him. Two massive streams of energy collided, creating a spectacular clash between golden light and red darkness. The guard started feeling the terrifying pressure from Noah's assault and realized he was about to be completely overwhelmed. Noah seized the opening, slicing through the enemy's darkness with a swift, precise sequence of sword strikes. With a nimble leap, he connected his strike against the opponent, ripping through his clothes and inflicting a deep wound. Noah analyzed his opponent's limits and knew he needed to wrap up this fight quickly before his own body collapsed. The villain tried to maintain his arrogant facade, laughing off Noah's visible exhaustion. Noah smiled back, pointing out that his enemy's polite tone had completely vanished, laying bare his panic and desperation. Irritated by the young man's smug composure, the villain lunged forward, launching a frenzied barrage wrapped in dense dark aura. He roared in anger, insisting Noah couldn't possibly predict or escape his presence. His stealth skill activated, surrounding Noah in a vortex of red mist that completely blocked his view in an attempt to throw off his senses. The two maids watched anxiously from afar, unable to see the young master who had vanished into the dark attack. Noah relied entirely on his combat intuition, letting his own aura flare bright through the fog. The young man spotted the opponent's blind spot and delivered a clean, precise strike right down the middle of the villain's hidden charge. A violent explosion echoed across the room, bringing the clash to a sudden, decisive end. The guard collapsed to the floor, severely wounded. Unable to comprehend how the young master could unravel his secret technique, Noah explained that even though he had concealed his body, his aura still leaked out because he relied far too heavily on a simple trick. Thoroughly terrified, the villain slumped on the floor, exhausted, trying to make sense of where such overwhelming power came from. Noah held his sword with a steady grip, calmly stating that even he hadn't fully grasped the limits of this new hybrid power yet. He pondered how seamlessly his old holy core and new dark core had blended together. He realized his power was now a perfect fusion of his original holy core and his new body's dark core. The young man thought that if he could master this unprecedented hybrid power, he would have a shot at saving the world once again. With a faint smile, he quietly thanked his fallen friend for giving him newfound hope. The servants rushed to the young man's side in panic, checking if he was hurt or if they needed to call a doctor. Noah reassured them he was fine, but his attention was caught by a small black creature with wings landing on the bedroom window. It was a tiny messenger dragon holding an important sealed letter in its mouth. Lydia took the letter and explained that it was an official summons directly from the head of the house, Lord Victor. The maid handed the sealed letter to the young master, reminding him that the family head wanted to confirm his participation in the succession war. Noah stared at the paper with a thoughtful expression. Knowing he needed to gather intel on this succession war to plan ahead, the hero decided to ask the two maids if they knew the details about the brutal conflict among the heirs. Lydia immediately confirmed, adding that every servant in the Dazkul house was well acquainted with the rules of the trial. She explained that the conflict was designed to temper their bloodline, which was essentially a hunt for energy cores. In this succession war, biological siblings would fight one another, and the winner had the right to seize the loser's dark core. Noah realized with horror that for generations, members of this family had been destroying each other just to claim the title of family head. The maid asked nervously if the young master really intended to risk his life entering such a ruthless trial. Wearing a subtle smile, the young man confidently replied that she would find out soon enough. He recalled how in his past life, the glorious family was beloved by the people as the true symbol of divine justice. The Dazkul family, however, was the exact opposite. They were feared and hated for tapping into the forbidden power of the Dark Core. Mysterious as he was, everyone knew the current head of the family, Victor Dazkul, was considered the strongest swordsman in human history. Dressed sharply and formally, the young man made his way toward the main gates of the Grand Hall. Determined to figure this place out, he took a deep breath, intent on seeing the hidden truth behind this infamous criminal family with his own eyes. The young man walked into the Grand Hall with an imposing presence, formally announcing his arrival as Noah Dazkul. He walked down the red carpet, observing his waiting siblings lined up right in the middle of the hall. Noah walked slowly and elegantly, carefully analyzing the posture of every member of his new family. The eldest son of the bloodline was Damien Dazkul, a warrior in heavy armor with an extremely stern expression. Beside him was Julia Dazkul, the eldest daughter, featuring long silver hair and a cold, distant demeanor. The second son was Kees Dazkul, a mess-haired blonde who looked utterly bored and indifferent. The second daughter was Eve Dazkul, a black-haired girl who maintained a quiet composure. Suddenly, Noah's eyes flared with anger as he spotted the brother who had plotted to ruin his health. It was the third son Skull Dazkul, the red-haired bastard who had poisoned him. Julia quietly picked up on the shift in Noah, and the young man confirmed that he had finally uncovered the cause of his illness. When asked, the young man surprised everyone by declaring he would put everything into training his swordsmanship. Julia narrowed her eyes in suspicion, noticing the dramatic change in her younger brother's attitude. Skull chimed in mockingly, laughing at the idea of training and advising Noah not to waste his time. Noah shot back that a coward who lacked the spine to face him directly ought to shut his mouth. Skull flew into a rage at his younger brother's arrogant retort, gritting his teeth as he threatened to put an end to him. Eve stepped forward with authority, telling them both to shut up and warning that time for bickering was over. A guard on the scene announced at the top of his lungs that the powerful head of the family, Lord Victor, had just arrived in the Grand Hall. Heavy footsteps echoed on the red carpet as the fearsome head of the family advanced toward the majestic Iron Throne. The older children immediately closed their eyes and bowed their heads, showing deep respect for the formidable patriarch. The youngest ones followed suit, displaying the absolute fear and submission they all held for their father. Noah felt a chill run down his spine as he faced the overwhelming aura emanating terrifying power. He recognized the legendary black-armored swordsman whose achievements were famous in his past life. This was the fearsome Victor Dazkul, a 9-star dark swordsman, considered the strongest in the world. The patriarch sat on his throne, observing the gathered group, and remarked with satisfaction that all the heirs were present. Victor crossed his arms majestically and officially announced the start of the Succession War Conference. He focused his stern gaze on his fourth son, and explained that this summons was to confirm Noah's intentions. The head of the family asked the young man what he intended to achieve with a frail body that had barely survived a recent illness. The young man let out a subtle, mockingly confident smile, proving he was completely unfazed by his father's authority. With a decisive tone, Noah spoke up clearly, declaring that he would join the war and be the sole victor. Victor threateningly asked if his son was truly prepared to declare war on all the candidates present. Noah calmly replied that his father had misunderstood, piquing the powerful patriarch's curiosity at such arrogance. The young man then clarified that his true intent was to declare war on absolutely everyone in this grand hall. Damien and Julia listened to the declaration with contempt, while Noah merely viewed them as obstacles he needed to overcome. The hero knew full well that the list of opponents he had to defeat wasn't limited to his biological siblings. He displayed extraordinary courage by including even the patriarch Victor among those he intended to surpass. Noah flashed a provocative smile, explicitly asserting to everyone that he wouldn't spare even his own biological father in this struggle. Infuriated, Victor unleashed a massive wave of dark chi, slamming straight into the hero with extreme brutality. The pressure from the patriarch's dark chi was so intense that it began cracking the massive stone pillars in the hall. Debris fell from the walls as a terrifying amount of destructive power radiated throughout the room. Despite enduring the suffocating, crushingly intense pressure, Noah stood his ground bravely. Realizing the patriarch's power was truly terrifying, Victor glanced at him with disdain and asked if the young master genuinely believed he was capable of surpassing him. Noah smiled fearlessly and gave a brief, direct confirmation, yes, without hesitating for even a second. The father pressed further, wanting to know the true reason the young man sought such a massive amount of power. The hero replied earnestly that he needed power to ensure no one could ever take anything from him again in this lifetime. Hearing that selfishly ambitious response, the patriarch burst out laughing, showing clear satisfaction. Victor said he liked this attitude and that such greed was a highly admirable trait in a Dazkul heir. The patriarch declared that Noah would be allowed to join the succession war, challenging any heir who objected to step forward. The siblings had mixed reactions, while the ruthless Skull boiled with mad rage because his plan to eliminate him had failed. The powerful patriarch commanded Noah to always stay hungry for power, encouraging the heir to constantly seek out more primordial strength. The next day, the young man found himself in the estate's sunlit training yard, ready to begin a grueling regimen. With quick, precise movements, he slashed at a straw mannequin, testing the blade's accuracy and speed. The mannequin was sliced in half, and Noah observed the result while the two maids stood at a distance, watching his practice with admiration. He felt his physical condition had improved significantly, but he still knew he was only at a basic level for combat. Due to the fusion of the two cores, he couldn't use standard light techniques or the family's dark moves. The young man focused his attention on his hands, trying to uncover the secrets and potential of this hybrid power. Noah realized he needed to hide the existence of his holy core from everyone to avoid exposing his true identity. Suddenly, Julia appeared in the training area, watching the young man and noting that he moved quite well for someone who had just been bedridden. She commented that previously only Damien was their father's favorite child, but now Noah had caught the patriarch's attention as well. Julia approached the weapon rack, revealing she had come to personally test her younger brother's new combat capabilities. With a serious face, she grabbed a wooden sword and told her younger brother they would start right away. Without giving Noah time to react, she launched a surprise attack, taking the hero off guard with her sisterly aggressiveness. He was forced to leap backward rapidly to dodge his sister's fluid attack. Julia wore a sly smile, mockingly asking if he really thought she had come just to talk. Noah clicked his tongue in annoyance. Realizing he would get no rest and had to take this fight against his powerful siblings seriously, Julia charged, unleashing a series of extremely fluid consecutive slashes across the training yard. The hero used his practice sword to block the strikes, leveraging the fight to gauge the current limits of his power. Julia picked up her attack speed, driving relentless, precise thrusts in an attempt to breach his defense. She stomped her foot hard against the ground, and then threw a direct kick. Even though the protagonist blocked it with his sword, his body was still pushed back. Julia remarked that her younger brother certainly possessed talent, but his level was still far below acceptable standards. Noah checked Julia's stat panel and discovered his older sister was a formidable 7-star warrior. The hero smirked as he confirmed her impressive strength. Realizing that defeating this opponent would be tough, the girl called his performance disappointing and charged in anger, unleashing a deadly slash at high speed. Noah's eyes widened, stunned by the absurd speed of the strike hurtling straight toward his body. Left with no other choice, he gripped the wooden sword tightly and activated the power of his hybrid core, radiating a potent surge of blended energy. The young man halted the terrifying impact, parrying his sister's blade at the very last moment amid the clash of energy. The hero had to exert immense physical strength to withstand the pressure. He realized his holy dark core was still extremely unstable. With a quick motion, he swiped her sword aside and launched a swift counterattack, unleashing a powerful burst of blended light. Julia blocked the strike, but asked in surprise if this was the holy dark core rumored to be a failure. She reminded him that she had heard rumors his core had been defunct since birth. Intrigued, Noah realized this body had possessed the holy dark core from the beginning, and everyone had assumed it was useless. He concluded that since no one knew his power was a rare blend, fighting for real wouldn't be an issue. Noah charged forward, delivering a downward slash with all his hybrid energy glowing around the blade. As the young man briefly lost focus, Julia mockingly remarked that he looked like he was thoroughly enjoying himself. Julia dodged with effortless grace and closed the distance, calling her brother's name in a calm voice. She asked if he knew the real goal of the succession war, and the young man confirmed he knew the answer. Julia said that would save time as Noah's wooden sword was sent flying far across the training yard. Enveloped in a dense, chilling layer of dark chi, the girl coldly asked Noah if she could take his core. The hero's eyes widened, completely shocked and tense as he realized his sister's sudden, ruthless intention. Noah desperately shouted for Selena, demanding she bring his real sword, and the servant rushed to obey. The maid tossed a sturdy metal sword into the air so the young master could defend himself in time. Noah leaped up to grab the hilt, channeling all his electric power to counter his sister's forward momentum. A massive collision of red and purple energy erupted, causing the young man to groan in pain from the brutal impact. Noah gritted his teeth, trying to hold out against the absurd physical strength his sister was pouring into her blade. Julia relentlessly executed fluid sword movements, but the young man still skillfully blocked every strike. He focused his purple gaze on the enemy's blade, looking for openings in Julia's fighting style. The girl smirked and admitted her younger brother had surprised her in a good way. She enthusiastically demanded he display more of his skills while continuing to press him with fierce attacks. Julia stepped back, leaped backward, and challenged Noah to see if he could withstand her next special move. The girl took a stance, casting a special dark combat posture known as the Dark Flame Sword Dance. Noah recognized the danger of that overwhelming attack and decided to use all his available energy to block it. Julia lunged forward, launching a blazing red dark flame slash straight down at the young man. The hero blocked the attack at the final millisecond, triggering a massive explosion of red and golden sparks. The terrifying clash between the two swords created a powerful gust of wind, forcing the two maids to shield themselves from flying dust. The girl recognized his defensive posture and mockingly asked if he intended to keep fighting with just one hand. She challenged him to use both hands if he wanted to hold out against the incredible primordial power she was applying in this fight. The male protagonist casually leaned to the side, causing his sister to lose her balance and stumble forward. Seizing the opportunity, the male lead tightened his grip on his sword, preparing to strike. However, despite his brilliant reactions, Julia managed to bring her sword behind her back just in time to block. With a grunt of effort, the young master pushed with all his strength to drive back his sister's powerful weapon. Noah smirked, realizing he had finally forced his sister to use both hands to defend. Even though he blocked it, the pressure of the blow still threw Noah back, sending the young man sliding across the ground at high speed. He gritted his teeth in anger, feeling extreme exhaustion and soreness after the intense clash with his sister. The young man broke his momentum, causing the stone floor of the training yard to crack beneath his feet from the sheer force. Julia looked at him in silence with an extremely grave expression. Analyzing the current exhaustion of the youngest heir, Noah gasped for air, realizing that using the full power of his hybrid core was barely enough to block that single move. The young warrior nervously noticed his hands were shaking violently from energy overload. He quietly lamented that this was the absolute physical limit his unstable hybrid core could currently handle. Julia asked if he knew why members of the Dawskul family didn't kill each other right at the start of the succession war. She explained that weak dark cores develop slowly, so nobody pays attention to weak heirs. The girl said harvesting a core before it reaches a good state is useless, while focusing her gaze on her dark weapon. She added that Noah had blocked and countered her attack in a remarkably unexpected way. Julia shifted into a hostile stance, declaring that a core with such durability was now worth taking. Noah clicked his tongue in annoyance upon realizing his sister was about to attack him with genuine, ruthless intent. Julia charged, gathering dark fire on her blade to execute the eighth form of her combat style. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out, commanding her to halt her attack immediately, cutting off the girl's lethal motion. An armored warrior named Kyle quickly appeared, using his sword to block Julia's downward slash in its tracks. Kyle yelled in desperation, warning the girl that if she continued that brutal assault, Noah would truly be finished. Julia told him not to meddle in the core battle, but he argued that Noah's core was currently at a very low tier. Julia coldly retorted that such a thing was impossible since her younger brother had blocked her strongest attack. Meanwhile, Noah stood right behind Kyle with an exhausted face, gritting his teeth as he glared at his formidable opponent. Kyle explained that he had investigated at the Patriarch's request and confirmed Noah's core was completely drained of power. He asked how a core supposed to be much stronger couldn't even hold up under basic limits. Noah was utterly exhausted as he tried to catch his breath after the fierce confrontation with his sister. Realizing his condition, Julia sheathed her sword and conceded that she might have been mistaken about the boy's true power. She explicitly warned her younger brother that she still intended to harvest his core in the future. The young girl challenged her brother to a real duel once he grew stronger and his power had evolved. Noah flashed a confident smile and told his sister that he would look forward to that real battle. As she left the training grounds, Julia began to think there was something very strange about Noah's abilities. She recalled their impact, knowing that attack could never have been blocked by someone at such a low level. She concluded suspiciously that her younger brother was hiding his true combat potential. Julia chuckled softly, finding the entire situation incredibly interesting and intriguing, hoping Noah would grow in a very remarkable way. Meanwhile, enraged roars echoed from another corner of the estate. Skull appeared in a frenzy of rage, smashing a glass against a subordinate's forehead as his hatred surged. He couldn't accept that a weakling like Noah was allowed to participate in the Grand Succession War. He roared in bitter resentment because even he had never received that much attention from the Patriarch in his entire life. He screamed that he would never accept this situation. A subordinate then cautiously approached and whispered a crucial secret into his master's ear. Upon hearing the news, Skull formed a cunning smile, revealing that he had just come up with a rather interesting idea. With mad eyes, the villain swore he would savagely drag Noah out of this succession race. Back at the training ground, Kyle apologized for arriving late and formally introduced himself to Noah and the two maids. The warrior revealed he had been officially assigned by the Patriarch to serve as the young master's new combat instructor. He explained that the family ordered this training to make up for the time the young master had been bedridden. Noah activated his special appraisal skill to analyze the new instructor's power level in detail. He saw the man's stats were impressive and concluded that his capability was more than sufficient. Kyle asked if they should begin training, but the young master hesitated upon noticing the man was holding a piece of paper. The warrior reached forward, handing him the sealed letter and stating he had received direct orders from Patriarch Victor. Noah opened the letter to read it. This was his first official mission: investigate and eliminate the source causing the dangerous Scorpia phenomenon, an anomaly that attracted horrific monsters and could only be stopped by defeating the area leader. Noah smiled faintly, realizing this risky mission might be the exact opportunity he needed. He planned to leverage the circumstances of this tough mission to evolve his power without raising suspicion. Deep in the forest, a soldier stepped forward with a glowing sword, slashing apart an insect monster that appeared in their path. Kyle led the group, commanding them to maintain a swift pace and eradicate every creature in this dense forest. The soldiers quickly cleared the area while harvesting valuable materials from the monster corpses scattered across the ground. A few subordinates whispered mockingly, "Noah must be terrified since he's just a weak warrior." Kyle also privately wondered why the Patriarch was paying so much attention to someone of such a low tier. Suddenly, a warning shout drew the attention of Noah and Kyle, both looking toward the canopy in surprise. They discovered a group of young children who had collapsed and lay completely unconscious on the forest floor. Noah asked what they should do. Realizing the kids seemed affected by the local Scorpia phenomenon, Kyle replied that the mission was urgent, so they would bring the children along to avoid wasting more time. The warriors carried the children on their shoulders and continued moving rapidly into the deep depths of the dark forest. Pulses of purple energy sliced through the air as the atmosphere grew thick and unnatural. Massive ancient trees loomed overhead, draped in toxic fog that severely hindered the group's vision. Noah warned that the concentration of dark energy was surging, meaning the monster leader was definitely nearby. Suddenly, the sharp claws of a giant creature swept down from the treetops, violently snapping branches. Everyone panicked, realizing the abrupt appearance of the gigantic beast known as the Scorpia Scorpion. Kyle yelled desperately, commanding the soldiers to protect the children and get them to safety immediately. The instructor warned that the monster's carapace was too hard and that they needed a tactical plan before attacking. The beast's terrifying, glowing sting was raised high in the air, preparing to deliver a destructive strike to the rescue team. Noah's eyes widened and he shouted a desperate warning, telling everyone that a lethal blow was hurtling straight at them. The massive strike slammed into the ground with extreme force, blowing soldiers away in a cloud of thick dust. One soldier was terrified by the absurd speed and scary power of the monster's sting. The whole group felt despair, believing Noah would easily be defeated since he only possessed 2-star strength. The giant monster began spewing toxic gas and acid toward everyone in the vicinity. Noah stayed calm and activated his hybrid aura, channeling all his energy into his blade. The hero charged forward at high speed to face the giant scorpion's sharp claws without a hint of fear. He delivered a precise strike, driving back the monster's pincers in a shower of brilliant sparks. Kyle was impressed with his defensive capability, but warned that the monster's true danger lay in its lethal toxin. The scorpion spat thick streams of dark green acid straight at the young master, executing acrobatic maneuvers midair. The hero nimbly dodged every single corrosive shot. The aggressive beast attacked with its sting, dripping large amounts of deadly venom onto the ground. Noah used his mental fortitude to block a direct hit from the sting coming down at high speed. The young man fixed his purple eyes on the creature, and decided to go all out to wrap up the battle quickly. He unleashed a crushing counterattack, blasting the opponent's sting away with terrifying power. A soldier praised the young master's brilliant swordsmanship, even though he knew his core was supposed to be weak. Tension escalated as the group watched in horror as the monster's sting completely regenerated. The scorpion lunged relentlessly, forcing the young master to fall back to dodge the attacks. Noah ran his fingers along the blade, guiding the fusion of the two energy streams to enhance the weapon. He gripped the hilt with both hands, preparing to launch a concentrated strike at the monster. The warrior leaped onto the beast's back, intending to slash right through the opponent's carapace. As he struck down, Noah realized the monster's natural armor was far too tough to penetrate. The metal blade slid off without dealing real damage, merely casting sparks across the black shell. Noah gritted his teeth in frustration at the absurd durability of the insect's armor. Kyle watched the battle, curiously wondering how the young master had learned such flawless technique without an instructor. The young master called out to Kyle, demanding immediate backup, and the instructor quickly responded that he would cover him. Noah asked his master to create an opening on the monster. Kyle took the order and assured him the move would succeed. The beast's terrifying sting locked onto the instructor, who braced himself to endure the violent impact. Kyle let out a battle cry, gathering his strength to meet the giant scorpion's direct assault head-on. With his heavy sword, the instructor blocked and temporarily restrained the opponent's scary sting. Noah acknowledged his master's excellent contribution and ran toward the beast's torso holding an item. The young man built up momentum and nimbly leaped onto the opponent's back where a weakness was exposed. He landed precisely on the enemy's carapace, maintaining perfect balance. Noah pulled out the sharp, venomous spider fangs he had secretly collected earlier. He put all his physical strength into plunging the acid-dripping fangs deep into the monster's armor. The fangs pierced through the hard shell, leaving deep, smoking cracks. The scorpion roared in pain as the concentrated spider toxin began its destructive work. Seizing the opportunity, the main character leaped off the scorpion's back. Moments later, the scorpion's massive body collapsed to the ground. Kyle asked if those were the fangs from the monsters they had dealt with on the way in. He explained that the acid from those monsters was the only way to soften the enemy's armor. Kyle finally understood the young master's strategy and why he had gathered those items. The scorpion glared with its many red eyes, preparing a violent counterattack in its agony. The beast tried to slam its body against the ground to trigger a skill. Massive green magic circles appeared in the forest sky, ready to be activated. The master prepared to unleash the third form of the dark sword style against his foe. He drove his sword powerfully into the ground, releasing a massive wave of purple magic energy. A giant barrier rose from the earth, trapping the scorpion and preventing its escape. Noah smiled, realizing the trap was sprung, and that this was the ideal chance to finish the beast off. The young man leaped high, channeling all the energy of his hybrid aura. He stood in a grand posture, and began invoking his newly created holy demon style to land the final blow. Inspired by Julia, the hero decided to test out a new variation using the power of his hybrid core. Letting out a resounding battle cry, the young man activated Light Shadow Sword Dance to strike his terrified opponent. Noah plunged down like a brilliant falling star, tearing through the air alongside a terrifying stream of purple and gold energy. The massive impact of the move struck the monster, splitting its weakened armor right down the middle. The giant scorpion was completely defeated, bursting into pieces and showering the ground with corrosive green fluid. The soldiers watched the whole thing in awe, unable to believe a two-star warrior possessed such power. Noah thought to himself that he had tried to imitate his older sister's move, but knew he still had a long way to evolve. The young man said they had done well and told Kyle he would leave the cleanup of the area to him. The instructor asked where he was going, and the young master replied that he needed to handle a private matter. The hero then left the group, heading alone toward the deepest, darkest depths of the forest. Noah recalled that in this era, humanity had not yet discovered the true origin of mana outbreaks. However, he knew these phenomena were intentionally created using extremely powerful magical tools. The young man approached an ancient, giant tree that was giving off a faint, mysterious blue glow at the base of its trunk. With a swift, precise slash, he carved an opening into the wooden trunk to investigate what was hidden inside. Inside the trunk, the hero found a glowing ring acting as a catalyst for dark energy. Noah retrieved the magical item with a satisfied smile, confirming he had finally found the device. Suddenly, a desperate scream echoed from the area where the soldiers and children were waiting. Noah was utterly shocked to hear the cry, realizing something terrible was happening to his allies. Without hesitation, the young man spun around and sprinted at top speed back to the rescue team's camp. When he arrived, he found the children collapsed on the ground, radiating dangerous green energy from their bodies. A soldier ran up to him, shouting that the monsters in the forest had started acting strange. Noah took a defensive stance and drew his weapon, sensing a massive wave of hostility rapidly approaching the area. A giant swarm of wild monsters emerged from every direction, completely surrounding the clan's warriors. The horde of insects surged violently, forcing the group into a defensive huddle to protect the injured. The young master activated his gold and purple battle aura, preparing to block the initial wave of attacks. Kyle showed up just in time, unleashing a powerful strike to support Noah's dangerous position. The instructor held back the monster's momentum. As the soldiers cheered in relief at being saved, Noah strictly ordered them to hold their ground so he could buy time to figure out the situation. He focused his attention on a mysterious necklace worn around the neck of one of the unconscious children on the ground. Noah realized the item was draining its victim's magic energy, a ruthless method that had destroyed his clan in his past life. Kyle warned that the horde was too vast and they couldn't hold out much longer. The hero decided to use his hybrid core to interfere with the item's energy flow and trace the person controlling the magic. He touched the mysterious necklace, causing his own powerful mental energy to resonate with the object's magic. Noah closed his eyes, focusing entirely on tracing the source of the power vibrations that were commanding the monsters. He pinpointed the location of a red-eyed, masked figure hiding in the shadows, gloating with delight. Having found him, the young man told his allies he would be gone for a moment and ordered everyone to protect the children at all costs. Noah darted like lightning across the battlefield, slicing through the wolves and goblins trying to block his path. He sprinted deep into the forest, tracking the magic energy signature of the controller at a terrifying speed. He looked like a blurred streak of light gliding through the dark forest landscape. Noah stopped in the middle of a clearing and demanded at the top of his lungs that the hidden enemy show himself immediately. Suddenly, the masked figure leaped down from a treetop, swinging his sword in an ambush. He sidestepped, dodging the attack. The two warriors fell back into defensive stances as the intruder looked at Noah with suspicion. The villain expressed surprise that Noah could sense his presence and admitted he was indeed the rightful heir. Noah demanded to know who had ordered the ambush, but the masked figure refused to answer. The young hero flashed a provocative smile and declared that he would force his opponent to spill everything he knew anyway. They lunged at each other, trading lightning-fast sword strikes in a high-speed clash. The attacker was stunned by Noah's overwhelming power and wondered if it originated from a dark core. Noah sarcastically replied that even he didn't fully understand how his power worked yet. The hero got into position, radiating a mixed aura while the attacker tried to analyze Noah's mysterious abilities. The villain funneled energy into his blade and decided to activate the second form of the dark style. The villain utilized a flying sword technique, summoning multiple dark energy blades around himself. He commanded the red projectiles to fire, hurling them at high speed to corner and strike the hero. Noah stayed calm, deftly dodging the magical blades that barely grazed him. Utilizing his fluid swordwork, the young man cleverly parried the remaining slashes aimed at his chest. Noah felt the impact force and decided to activate his appraisal skill to expose his opponent's true identity. He discovered the enemy's name was Darius, possessor of a 5-star core, but the attacker taunted him for stepping back. The hero realized the villain's swordwork was actually quite weak and knew he just needed to close the distance to end the fight. Noah charged forward, aggressively sprinting toward Darius while dodging every beam of dark energy. He deftly dodged another flank attack, continuing to narrow the gap between him and the culprit. With solid, fluid footwork, the young man launched himself off the grass, accelerating even harder toward an opening to land a lethal blow. Noah leaped gracefully over his opponent's head, easily bypassing the entire defense the villain had set up. Mid-air, he raised his glowing sword, preparing a direct strike on his enemy's exposed neck. Their blades collided violently, creating terrifying spiritual pressure between the two warriors. The attacker laughed beneath his mask, calling the young man foolish for using such an obvious, predictable move. The villain whipped the air with waves of dark energy, trying to keep Noah at a distance using magic tentacles. Noah focused and shifted into a special stance to trigger the first move of the Holy Demon style. Gathering his hybrid power, he prepared a surprise attack at a speed far beyond normal. The warrior unleashed Shadow Light Shift, charging forward like an untraceable purple blur. Darius panicked, recognizing the legendary move, and tried to defend against the sudden dash, but it was too late. He spun around in terror, trying to raise his metal sword, only to realize the young man's speed was absurd. Appearing right behind his opponent, Noah whispered, "You're too slow," and landed a heavy blow on his back. The villain groaned in agony, staggering from the severe chest wound he had just suffered. He dropped his sword onto the grass and collapsed to his knees, completely broken and heavily wounded after the fight. Darius angrily asked how a weak outcast of the Da schoolhouse could possibly know such a legendary move. Noah thought to himself that his hybrid core allowed him to perfectly recreate the secret techniques of both bloodlines. He knew that mere imitation wasn't enough. The true potential of this mixed power would only come with time. The young man understood that once he fully mastered this hybrid strength, he would become the strongest warrior in the world. Noah pointed his blade at the villain's neck and demanded to know who ordered the entire ambush. Darius spat back with hatred, telling the young man not to declare victory so soon because the fight wasn't over. Without hesitation, the attacker pulled out a mysterious potion bottle and quickly drank the strange green power-enhancing liquid. Noah watched the scene suspiciously, realizing the culprit's mental energy was beginning to shift. Darius's body began to swell grotesquely, cracking the ground beneath him as he screamed in agony. The young man jumped back, horrified by the violent mutation altering his enemy's body. The attacker's face twisted, becoming monstrous with sharp teeth and ruthless eyes. Darius transformed into a giant demon, roaring in rage and releasing a crushing wave of dark energy. Noah watched the transformation in horror, realizing his opponent had sacrificed his humanity in exchange for power. The terrifying monster charged like lightning, throwing a devastating punch that shook the forest ground violently. The young master was forced to channel all his hybrid power to raise his sword and block the beast's charge. The impact sent out a massive shockwave, blasting debris away and destroying part of the surrounding flora. Noah realized with concern that his weapon wouldn't hold up if he kept blocking the beast's attacks. The monster Darius laughed aloud, challenging the young man to see how much longer he could endure those lethal blows. He attacked from above with claws and crushing punches, trying to tear the young master apart at all costs. A deadly red light flared from the mutated monster's eyes, signaling it was about to use even more power. Massive claws slashed through the air with destructive red beams, trying to corner and obliterate the young man. Noah dodged the destructive strike by a hair, feeling the terrifying rush of wind created by his enemy's attack. The giant demon Darius lunged forward with both fists raised, ready to crush the young man to pieces. Noah leaped high into the air, dodging the monster's hands, barely touching the ground. Airborne and upside down, the hero focused on the absolute limits of his strength. Preparing to counter, he executed a perfect somersault and landed in a defensive stance. Keeping his sword ready to block the next advance, Noah realized he couldn't dodge forever and decided to use a magical item to create an opening. Determined, the young master tightened his grip on his hilt, ready to activate his trump card. Darius laughed mockingly at the hero's perceived weakness and dove from above to crush him completely. The monster loudly declared he would end the battle right now as he charged aggressively straight at the young man. The beast's massive hand came crashing down at high speed, about to obliterate Noah's body. At the final second, the ring of absolute reflection that the hero had found began to glow brilliantly. A powerful pink hexagonal shield appeared, blocking the mutated monster's massive fist head-on. The magical barrier generated a terrifying reflective shockwave, blasting the giant demon Darius back into the air. Noah flashed a confident smile as he spotted the opening. Realizing that with his hybrid core he could reuse his old techniques, the young man dashed toward the monster suspended helplessly mid-air. Pouring in all his mental energy, he locked his target onto his defenseless opponent in the sky. Preparing to unleash his most destructive move, Noah began summoning his powerful holy demon style. Concentrating a vast amount of power into his blade, he raised his weapon, generating a giant pillar of golden purple energy that tore through the dark forest sky. The young man activated dual polarity single strike, unleashing a massive vertical slash. The brilliant beam hit the monster dead on, cleaving its body in two and triggering a terrifying explosion across the battlefield. Noah landed smoothly on the ground and breathed a sigh of relief, having been saved at the last second thanks to activating the magic ring. He analyzed the ring of absolute reflection, realizing the relic had the power to neutralize any attack and push the attacker back. The young hero decided it was time to head back and check on the situation with Kyle and the other soldiers. Meanwhile, the soldiers of the Dazkul clan were still fighting valiantly against the giant swarm of wild monsters. Kyle gritted his teeth, pushing his physical strength to the absolute limit, silently lamenting that he was reaching his breaking point. A giant goblin took advantage of the exhausted instructor, raising a spiked club to deliver a finishing blow. The warrior despaired, believing he was about to take a lethal strike from the out-of-control beast. However, to Kyle's shock, the monster's club suddenly stopped mid-air just a moment before hitting him. The man opened his eyes in confusion, unable to understand why all the forest creatures had suddenly stopped attacking. The soldiers looked at one another, both relieved and astonished as they realized they had miraculously survived that terrifying battle. Noah approached, casually walking through the clearing, and directly asked everyone if they were all right after the clash. Kyle confirmed, still trembling, that they had barely made it out of the fierce battle alive. The young man explained that he had defeated the monster controller, shocking the instructor with the revelation that there had been a summoner behind it all. Noah confirmed the enemy was real, but mentioned he still needed to find out who hired the mercenary to stage the ambush. The soldiers looked at the children who were still unconscious on the ground, but were now safe from the danger of the Scorpio mist. The young master grew thoughtful, knowing he needed to act fast to expose the true mastermind behind everything. Returning to the grand main estate of the Dazkul clan, the hero decided he would begin his own secret investigation. Noah was furious at the thought that innocent children had almost died because of him, swearing to catch the mastermind behind the attack no matter what. He recalled that young Eve Dazkul served as the clan's main informant and that she might know something important. The young man locked his gaze with resolve, knowing he needed to find a solid lead before making his next move. Just as he was about to step into the palace's restricted area, Noah was suddenly barked at to stop by a stern voice. His blonde older brother, Kees Dazkul, appeared to block his path, sternly warning him that he had no right to enter. The two brothers faced off in the outer courtyard, creating an immensely tense atmosphere between the clan's heirs. He recalled the information revealed by the maid Lydia, confirming that Eve knew the true identity of the mastermind. The hero radiated a powerful, stern combat aura, ordering his blonde brother to get out of the way. Keys replied that he was Eve's bodyguard and couldn't let anyone emitting such dangerous, hostile intent pass. The blonde young man roared in anger, clearly declaring that he didn't trust Noah and would stop him at all costs. Noah regretted the situation, tightening his grip on his hilt as he prepared to use force against his own brother. The hero drew his metal sword and firmly declared that he would force his way through if necessary. Keys drew his blade as well, accepting the challenge and grumbling in frustration that he had no other choice. Keys charged like lightning, launching a fluid sword attack toward the hero in the outer courtyard. Their blades clashed violently, creating a burst of sparks between them. Noah endured the crushing physical pressure of the strike, keeping his sharp gaze locked on his opponent's movements. With a swift motion, the hero shoved Keys back, forcing him to take a few steps back toward the center of the courtyard. The two warriors briefly kept their distance, sizing each other up as they prepared for the next exchange. Keys gathered red magical mist in his left hand, channeling the elemental power of earth and stone. He slammed his hand onto the ground, casting his stone lance sword technique, creating giant, sharp stone spikes that sprouted from the earth. Noah was startled by the speed at which the thick, sharp rock masses surged toward him. Noah used his metal sword to block and deflect his opponent's rock projectiles. He shattered the stone spikes with swift slashes, displaying magnificent defense. Keys activated his crushing stone fang magic, forming a giant, heavy stone weapon in his hands. Noah was surprised by the sheer size of the stone sword his opponent was swinging around so effortlessly. Keys spun with blinding speed, swinging the massive stone weapon toward the hero in a devastating arc. The young master defended himself, raising his holy sword to block the terrifying impact of the stone blade. They launched into a frenzy of relentless attacks, making the entire courtyard tremble under the sheer power of their strikes. The blonde youth maintained a cold glare, demonstrating absolute focus on his intricate combat strategy. Keys executed rapid spins and slashes, forcing Noah to continuously retreat to avoid taking a direct hit. Noah realized his opponent had a complex attack chain and decided to use his appraisal skill to analyze him. The status window showed that Keys' Dazkul possessed formidable attributes at the 8-star level. The young man noted that his own core was weaker, but his opponent made up for it by combining magic with swordplay. Noah decided to tackle him head-on and activated his holy demon style to harness his full mystical power. He gathered his power and initiated the light shadow sword dance, radiating a brilliant gold and purple light. A massive explosion of hybrid energy expanded across the courtyard, blasting Keys back with immense force. The opponent was shocked as he felt the terrifying power radiating directly from the young man's devil core. Keys slid backward from the gust of wind generated by the clash of magical techniques. Showing surprise at such strength, he quickly regained his composure and prepared his dark lightning style to launch a lightning-fast strike. The blonde young man charged forward with the instantaneous movement of dark lightning, generating black sparks around his blade. Noah recognized the style, recalling its combat utility from what he had learned during training. He remembered that instructor Kyle had taught him the key characteristics of the clan's technique. The hero readied himself, knowing his opponent's attack focused on extreme speed. While Keys realized he knew the theory, the blonde young man chuckled and warned that knowing theory was very different from facing an actual strike on the battlefield. Without hesitation, Noah challenged his opponent to attack him at top speed. Keys swung his sword, unleashing a barrage of red and black lightning. The entire courtyard was engulfed in an electrical storm, completely obscuring Noah's vision. Noah exerted immense physical strength, trying to keep up with his opponent's lightning-fast movements. Letting out a loud roar, the hero pushed himself to his absolute limit to dodge and defend against the slashes. A massive explosion of electrical energy erupted in the center of the courtyard, illuminating everything around them. A bright flash and a thick cloud of dust shrouded both warriors, bringing the frantic assault to an end. A powerful gust of wind blew away the dust accumulated in the courtyard, revealing the damage caused by the fierce battle. Noah emerged from the smoke, struggling to maintain his defensive stance after taking the full pressure of the attack. His clothes were torn and damaged from the power and precision of the lightning strike. He groaned in pain, feeling severe physical exhaustion brought on by his enemy's technique. Noah was stunned to realize that even the light shadow sword dance couldn't completely block the attack. The young man concluded that techniques copied from other warriors had clear limits to the power they could exert. He understood he urgently needed to develop his own original techniques using his hybrid core. Suddenly, a firm voice ordered the battle to stop immediately, cutting off the confrontation in the courtyard. Young Eve Dazkul appeared at the doorway, observing the two warriors with a calm, serious gaze. She decided to invite them into her luxurious living room to understand the true motive behind the entire conflict. After both sat down on the sofa, the young woman asked them directly why they were fighting each other. Keys explained that he acted to protect her because Noah had arrived with clear, intense hostile intent. Noah asked out of curiosity why someone as important in the Dazkul clan as her needed a bodyguard. Eve calmly replied that she wasn't good at physical combat and preferred to keep her distance from fights. Keys asked Noah why he was visiting and reminded him that her genius older brother had no interest in competing for the throne. The young woman quickly guessed that her younger brother wanted to find out who was behind sending assassins after him. The young man was quite surprised and asked how she had guessed so quickly. Eve flashed a mysterious smile and said there were very few things in this world she didn't know. She said she truly wanted to help her dear younger brother, but emphasized that this information came with a very high price. Noah quickly realized this was a trade and asked her directly what she wanted in return. The young woman asked if he knew about the legendary Endless Library, sparking the young master's curiosity. That place was a massive labyrinth of unknown scale, containing secrets that had never been revealed. Many adventurers had established a city nearby, but exploring the deeper floors was extremely dangerous. Eve requested that Noah bring her back a specific relic from there called the Tome of the Abyss. Noah recalled that this book had revolutionized the magic theory he knew in his past life. He remembered that this knowledge had saved countless lives during the horrific war against the invaders. The hero thought that obtaining this relic earlier than expected could be the key to changing his tragic future. Noah accepted the offer without hesitation and assured her that he would bring the mysterious book back for his older sister. The two heirs sealed the deal with a firm handshake, officially establishing their partnership from that moment on. A moment later, a luxurious carriage sped toward the destination of their quest. Noah was accompanied by two maids, who looked quite excited about the long journey. They finally arrived at Grandio Arenum, the city housing the Grand Library Tower. The young man stepped down from the carriage and began strolling through the busy cobblestone streets of this new place. Noah knew the interior was such a complex maze that he would need an experienced guide to avoid getting lost. He surveyed the surrounding crowd, focusing on finding someone familiar with the place, and as the young master walked through the narrow alleys, he caught the attention of several suspicious residents. The city's majestic and ancient architecture stood out, highlighting the area's immense historical significance. Meanwhile, back at the main estate, Eve was casually relaxing on a sofa while sipping tea. The family butler opened the door, announcing that an important guest had arrived to see the young lady. Another heir of the clan entered the room with slow steps, maintaining an extremely confident and strategic posture. The newcomer flashed a smile, revealing he had come to ask a few questions about Noah. Eve observed her older brother with a calm, expressionless gaze, waiting to see what his next move would be. The two sat comfortably on the sofas in the living room, initiating a silent dialogue filled with familial tension. The young lady commented in a disdainful tone that his visit to her private quarters was extremely rare. Skull admitted he came with the intention of asking a favor and borrowing his sister's knowledge. He noticed the absence of her bodyguard, and she revealed that Keys had left on an urgent mission assigned by the patriarch. Skull let out a sinister smile upon realizing his sister was completely unprotected at the moment. Unbothered, Eve took a sip of tea and asserted that her other guards were more than capable of handling things. The man praised her composure and asked her directly what she knew about Noah's recent actions. He said he wanted to learn the source of the power Noah had displayed when going toe-to-toe against Julia. Skull confessed he was obsessed with discovering the secret behind his younger brother's sudden power evolution. The villain added that Noah had even defeated his attackers, surprising the young lady with this news. The elegant woman set her teacup aside, maintaining a neutral attitude toward his provocation. Eve firmly declared that she would not reveal anything that could directly interfere with the succession war. She knew that if she showed favoritism to one brother, the other candidates would immediately move to eliminate her. Skull shifted his attitude and threateningly asked if she was truly planning to refuse to cooperate with him. The young lady shot back by asking if he had anything valuable enough to compensate for the risk of losing her position. He let out a dark smile and repeated the word compensate as if plotting something terrible. He warned that she would soon understand that cost, just as a sinister shadow appeared right behind her back. While the plot was unfolding in the estate, a bright sunny day shone down on the bustling city of Arenum. Noah continued walking with absolute focus through the large local market, ignoring the curious glances of the residents. The young man headed straight toward his destination, determined to find the answers necessary for his journey. Noah pushed open the wooden door of an antique shop, a small bell tinkling to signal his arrival. The young man observed the interior with a sense of nostalgia, remembering that he had finally returned to this special place in his new life. Osrek, the magic shop owner, appeared and warned the young man that the shop was currently closed. Noah stated he hadn't come to buy anything, but to hire him as an official guide to explore the endless library. The merchant refused, saying he no longer worked as a guide, but the young man insisted because he was the most knowledgeable person around. Osrek reacted with extreme annoyance, telling the young master not to make him laugh with ridiculous boasts. Noah found this reaction very strange because he knew this man had once loved that mysterious labyrinth of knowledge so deeply. The young man asked directly if there was an underlying reason why he had given up working as a local guide. Osrek slammed his desk in anger, roaring that this wasn't a problem the young man could solve or help with. The merchant took a deep breath, looking as though he were carrying a painful emotional weight of resentment in his heart. "I apologize for my rude attitude earlier. "I've been under a lot of stress and impatience lately," Osrek confessed. Suddenly, the small shop bell rang again, signaling the unexpected arrival of another person in the shop. Noah was shocked to see that the newcomer was none other than his older sister, Julia. She asked if he was all right. The beautiful silver-haired woman waved with a faint smile on her lips as she stepped into the shop. She explained that she had seen him on a mission and decided to follow along. Though Noah realized he was officially caught, the merchant panicked upon recognizing Julia, one of the kingdom's most famous swordswomen. He grabbed Noah's shoulders, calling him kid, and the young man quickly corrected him, stating his real name. The man instantly changed his tune and accepted the job on the condition that Julia also join the expedition. Noah grew suspicious of the sudden change and realized he truly had a personal reason for accepting the task. The merchant told them to follow him and led them to the deepest part of the shop. They entered a dark room where a purple-haired woman lay resting on a bed. Osrek approached his beloved wife with hollow eyes and began recounting the horrific event that had occurred a month ago. He revealed that his wife had been cursed after being attacked by a giant red-armored monster in the labyrinth. The man explained that the beast's curse caused the victim to fall into a deep slumber until drawing their last breath. Noah deduced that the best solution was to defeat the monster, but the guide lamented that all the adventurers had failed. Osrek fell to his knees, begging Julia to use her extraordinary strength to venture into the labyrinth and save his wife. Julia agreed to help on the condition that Noah also actively participate in fighting the terrifying monster. She placed her hand on her younger brother's shoulder, explaining that she wanted to see his combat style in the labyrinth with her own eyes. The young man immediately realized his sister still suspected the true origin of his new combat abilities. With no way out, Noah accepted the condition and told the merchant they were ready to begin the mystical rescue mission. The man rejoiced, looking very confident and determined, swearing to lead them as safely as possible. The trio gathered before the massive library tower while Julia checked if her other assignment was doing fine. She locked her eyes on Noah and sincerely admitted she was extremely curious to uncover her younger brother's secrets. She recalled their clash, sensing that her younger brother had used a different kind of energy from the clan's usual dark core. The young woman warned that he would have to reveal the truth inside the labyrinth, and Noah noted her sharp intuition in recognizing the difference in power. The merchant showed up with a giant backpack full of supplies and apologized for being late. Noah took the lead and told everyone to set off immediately for the main gate of the magnificent structure. The group entered the main hall, which was packed with adventurers and warriors from all over. The guide registered the team at the front desk and warned that the three of them would have to rely heavily on one another inside. Local warriors whispered in pity as they looked at the trio and Osrek, believing they would be the next victims of this place. The man led them to a giant green stone gate, declaring it to be the true entrance to the endless library. He pushed the stone structure with considerable effort to begin the dangerous expedition. The gate opened, revealing a powerful and mysterious stream of green energy emanating from within the labyrinth. The trio stepped through the mystical passage under the guidance of their guide, who remained alert for any sign of danger. The young man observed the vastness of the place with its massive bookshelves, confirming the truly colossal scale of the location. Julia smiled in amazement, commenting that now she fully understood why they needed to rely on someone so experienced. The majestic architecture with floating staircases and complex pathways seemed to form an endless maze. Noah walked calmly, but his eyes suddenly widened as he saw something truly shocking on the tower wall. He stumbled upon an ancient painting depicting the hero of light facing a terrifying invasion of red monsters. The young man was stunned, concluding there were hidden secrets in this labyrinth directly tied to the future of the world. Noah analyzed the mural, focusing on finding any hidden clues that could help him defeat the invaders in the future. Julia flashed a confident smile and warned that it was time for them to continue deeper into the labyrinth. The young man confirmed their objective, reminding everyone that their current priority was to retrieve the legendary Book of the Endless Abyss. Upon reaching the first floor, the guide explained that the rarest and most forbidden books were all hidden on the deepest floors. Osrek revealed that this relic was banned in the neighboring kingdom and deduced it was certainly kept around the 20th floor. Noah found it amusing, remembering that this was the deepest floor any adventurer had ever set foot on. The group moved in an organized manner and approached a large green magic circle drawn in the center of the stone floor. They stood on the mystical magic circle to prepare for their descent to the lower floors of the library. Suddenly, dozens of orcs clad in armor and holding shields appeared out of thin air, blocking the adventurer's path. The guide explained that these beasts always guarded the entrance to the next floor and asked if the young master could eliminate them. Noah calmly reassured him that he would handle this basic threat as he drew his glowing sword from its scabbard. The young man charged forward with terrifying agility, unleashing high-speed golden slashes that tore the local monsters to pieces. He sheathed his sword with a swift, stylish motion, displaying frightening skill before the guide's eyes. The bodies of the defeated enemies fell onto the mystical library floor, confirming the young warrior's swift victory. Impressed by that ease, Osric urged the young nobles that they needed to move quickly toward their goal. The group reached the 10th floor, and the guide demanded absolute secrecy regarding the hidden shortcuts. From that point on in the expedition, he manipulated a specific book on the shelf to trigger the library's secret passage mechanism. A large secret door opened, revealing a hidden pathway that very few people knew how to use. The guide pointed to a hidden magic circle, explaining that this mystical tool was a fantastic shortcut. They gathered on the mystical magic circle, which began to glow brilliantly with powerful, rhythmic green energy. The magic teleportation activated and the entire group was enveloped in a giant pillar of light, completing an instantaneous journey. The powerful magic light vanished abruptly, revealing their arrival in a new, quiet area of the tower. Noah covered his face with both hands because of the blinding light generated by the teleportation process to the new floor. The guide revealed that they had skipped many floors and were now at the transition point from floor 19 to floor 20. Julia stepped forward with an arrogant smile, deducing that the next elite monsters were surely right up ahead. They arrived at a giant circular stone pit where a colossal green magic circle was glowing ominously. A massive wave of dark energy surged from the magic circle, signaling the immediate summoning of the area lord. Dozens of dark, aggressive tree branches and roots sprouted from the ground, spreading an atmosphere of terror throughout the area. A giant tree monster with multiple red eyes emerged, revealing itself to be the fearsome lord of this floor. The guide panicked upon realizing this creature had evolved into a lord monster far more powerful than what he remembered. Osric screamed in horror, saying that overcoming this beast would require multiple elite squads, but Julia dismissed his worries. The young swordswoman chuckled sarcastically, asking why the man thought she needed help. She drew her sword with an arrogant posture and assured him that her individual power was more than enough. Julia charged forward at high speed toward the giant tree monster, launching a swift direct attack. The massive monster counterattacked by whipping long, sharp black branches to crush the intruder in one blow. The female warrior performed brilliant acrobatic dodges, slicing through every branch trying to block her advance. She sprinted along her opponent's roots, rapidly closing the distance to try and strike the main trunk. Julia delivered a precise sword strike right to the center of the monster, creating a massive explosion of dark energy. The hit produced sparks, but only slightly scratched the opponent's hard bark while its red eyes flared with rage. The young woman landed deftly and admitted that the natural armor of this mystical creature was indeed very durable. Osric screamed in despair, warning that the wood was as hard as steel and a lone swordswoman would never beat it. Suddenly, dozens of wooden tentacles sprouted from the ground, completely surrounding and binding the female warrior's legs. Julia was completely restrained by the monster's vines, which began to squeeze around her body with immense, violent force. The Lord Monster tightened its wooden claws, preparing to crush its captured opponent in one go. Worried by the dangerous situation, Noah prepared to intervene and ran toward the fight to save his sister. The branches squeezed with maximum force, producing red sparks as they attempted to break through Julia's physical resistance. The female warrior remained calm and activated the fifth form of the dark combat style, releasing red flames. A burst of fire incinerated the vines, and she emerged in majestic, dark flame armor. Noah was completely stunned witnessing this powerful, rare elemental defensive technique at work right before his eyes. Julia swung her blade steeped in dark fire and prepared to counterattack with the style's first form. The female warrior activated the dark fire sword dance technique, funneling all flame energy into her weapon. The giant tree lord tried to react, swinging massive branches to crush Julia with extreme violence. Enveloped in pure fiery rage, the silver-haired woman charged decisively toward her opponent's trunk. With rapid, explosive slashes, Julia chopped through the wooden tentacles, turning the lord's defenses into ash. She built up momentum in the air and lunged forward, aiming straight for her opponent's multiple glowing eyes. The female warrior let out a resounding battle cry as she delivered an overhead slash infused with all her mystical energy. A giant cascade of red flames and dark energy was unleashed, tearing through the air and destroying everything in its path across the hall. The mighty attack cleaved the central lord's trunk in half, triggering a violent explosion of steam and smoke. Julia landed full of momentum and arrogance, declaring that her fire sword would never be blocked by something as mundane as steel. The guide pointed his finger in desperation, shouting a warning of danger as he realized the fatal clash was not entirely over. A stealthy tentacle quickly sprouted from the ground and wrapped tightly around Julia's ankle, catching the female warrior off guard. Dozens of dark roots emerged from the dirt and began completely covering her body. Julia realized plant monsters regenerated extremely fast unless completely incinerated in one go. She was dragged by the vines and ultimately trapped inside a dark cocoon made of vines in the center of the hall. Noah clicked his tongue in annoyance as he heard his sister invoking the third form of her special technique. Inside the wooden cocoon, the young man sensed an impending disaster and grabbed the guide's hand, pulling him out of the danger zone. He ran at top speed, desperately pulling Osrek along while yelling at him to move fast before the explosion went off. Inside the wooden cocoon, Julia's eyes flashed with a brilliant red glow, signaling the release of her trump card. A massive fiery explosion erupted, obliterating the cocoon and sending a horrifying shockwave of heat blasting across the entire area. Thick red smoke covered the grand hall while Noah and Osrek sprinted with everything they had to escape the impact of the attack. The fiery shockwave swept through the whole corridor, slamming both explorers to the ground of the mysterious labyrinth. Noah pushed himself up, coughing heavily, and deduced that his sister's intention was indeed to burn everything to ash just to keep the monster from regenerating. Amid the ashes and red haze, Julia emerged, standing victorious after completely wiping the boss out of existence. She calmly walked toward her companions and asked if they should keep looking for the book. The guide watched the whole scene in utter disbelief and deep shock, completely unable to fathom how she had destroyed that beast all by herself. Noah sank into thought, remembering that the black flame style possessed the highest raw damage output, and recalling that while this technique drained energy extremely fast, its power was undeniably the greatest in the world. The trio finally reached the 20th floor, stepping into a new hall filled with massive bookshelves packed with ancient texts. Noah focused his attention on the wooden bookcases, and suddenly widened his eyes when he spotted a very familiar work. The young man picked up the book in sheer excitement, shouting with joy because he had finally found the Book of the Abyss. Having completed their goal, Julia warned that now they needed to find the mysterious monster that had cursed the guide's wife. Noah asked where it was, and Osrek explained that this particular opponent usually roamed freely to hunt on this floor. A sudden metallic clang echoed through the silent corridor, instantly putting all three explorers on high alert. A book dropped onto a small tea table, revealing a drawing of a powerful warrior on its page. The young man picked up the mysterious book with suspicion, trying to figure out the true secret behind the picture. Out of nowhere, a threatening voice whispered that it had found him. The pages of the mysterious book began flipping rapidly, casting an eerie atmosphere over the dark corridor. Noah felt an overwhelming wave of hostility erupt from behind and reacted with insane speed to dodge the attack. He and Julia drew their swords, dropping into a hybrid defensive stance right in front of the terrified merchant. A terrifying gray-armored warrior with monstrous limbs emerged from the shadows, revealing itself to be the grand boss of this zone. Osrek pointed an angry finger, recognizing their opponent as the very demon that had inflicted such terrible suffering on his wife. Noah stepped forward, swinging his sword, determined to start the fight and end the dungeon's demonic beast once and for all. Julia sternly ordered her younger brother to back off, warning that she would personally handle this dangerous armored boss herself. She leaped into the air, propelled by her own black flames, shouting that she would take charge of leading the assault. The armored warrior raised its monstrous limb, getting ready to throw a devastating counterattack aimed straight at Julia. The two weapons clashed violently, creating waves of red fire that lit up the bookshelves across the hall. Julia poured terrifying physical strength into trying to hold off the direct collision, but she could still feel her opponent's absurd power. A massive shockwave blasted the explorers backward, showcasing the terrifying destructive force of this elite enemy. The female warrior landed, skidding across the floor and knocking over several bookshelves. Impressed by her opponent's absurd physical strength, she dropped to one knee with difficulty, coughing heavily from the brutal impact, and anxiously concluded that a drawn-out battle here would be absolute hell for them. Julia dodged the danger, leaping at high speed through the massive bookshelves in the hall. The female warrior tumbled along the wall, building up red flames along her metal blade. She plunged down from above toward the gray-armored opponent, unleashing an insanely powerful vertical slash. The direct clash triggered a massive explosion of red energy, making the entire structure of the mysterious library shake. Dust billowed everywhere from the sheer pressure. As Noah and the guide watched the epic battle unfolding in the hall, the young man realized with shock that the terrifying armored warrior had effortlessly blocked an attack that fast. Julia spun midair, regaining her combat stance while the relentless enemy kept pressing forward without slowing down. She landed back on the floor, realizing the enemy's strength was far beyond any ordinary monster, and slammed her hand onto the ground, activating an orange magic circle to summon the second form of her dark combat style. A massive, destructive vortex of red fire erupted under the monster's feet, attempting to incinerate it on the spot. The guide thought the fight was over with that blow, but Noah stayed tense, knowing the threat was still active. To everyone's shock, the armored warrior sliced the fiery vortex right in half with its black blade alone. Using nothing but the sheer force of its dark sword, Julia was sent flying back by the enemy's overwhelming counter, causing the entire fire vortex to instantly vanish. Capitalizing on the bounce, the girl leaped straight onto the top of the enemy's armor, screaming that she had caught him. She drove her blazing weapon deep into her opponent's head, trying to finish the fight right then and there. However, she grimaced in pain as she realized her slash wasn't enough to pierce the enemy's mysterious armor. The monster retaliated brutally, throwing a heavy punch that launched the female warrior flying into a stone wall, but Julia quickly caught her balance and cursed under her breath, "Damn it!" Noah realized with growing worry that even the legendary destructive power of the Black Flames was completely useless against this opponent. The young man panicked when he saw that his sister's attack hadn't left so much as a scratch on the enemy's armor. The monster's mouth began glowing with a brilliant blue light, building up a horrifying amount of mana. Julia looked at her arm in sheer terror, which had been invaded by a painful and horrific surge of blue energy. The armored warrior fired a massive beam of destructive blue energy straight at its opponent. At the very last second, Noah rushed in and tackled his sister, saving her from the terrifying beam. The energy beam caused an absurd explosion, carving a deep trench into the stone floor. The young man stood up and reassured his sister that he would back her up in this fight, but she warned him to be extremely careful about making physical contact with the enemy. Julia explained that any physical contact with the creature would inflict a horrific, painful curse on the body. She lamented that due to her injured arm, she wouldn't be able to gather the power needed to overpower the monster. Noah looked at her seriously and made an unusual request, leaving the female warrior completely confused by her brother's sudden shift in attitude. The armored warrior began gathering mysterious blue energy in its mouth again, prepping another lethal blast aimed right at them. Noah asked his sister to unleash her strongest attack one more time, and Julia thought the suggestion was practically sadistic since she had almost died using that move. Julia agreed to the plan, and Noah assured her he would focus on severing the enemy's cursed arm to create the ideal opening. The two heirs charged in parallel, syncing their movements and combining red flames with powerful crackles of electricity. Julia executed her flame dance while the young man activated a hybrid version of his sacred demonic style. They struck the enemy simultaneously with a terrifying flurry of slashes, filling the hall with golden light and black flames. The collision of opposing forces caused a massive multicolored explosion that lit up the entire 20th floor of the library. A giant pillar of fire and lightning engulfed the central battle area, spreading destruction across the bookshelves. The siblings backed off, sliding smoothly across the floor, holding their defensive stances while watching through the smoke. They stood side by side, staying alert and anxious to see if their combo attack had worked. However, the terrifying armored warrior let out a savage roar and emerged from the flames completely unharmed, raging to continue the fight. Both of them were stunned by the monster's absurd resilience as it charged forward to unleash a fresh assault. The enemy delivered a heavy downward slash, but the siblings used their weapons to block the hit with insane precision. Julia tumbled through the air, trying to find a weak point in their opponent's armor. In the frantic exchange, the enemy defended skillfully, repelling their attacks with its massive shield and forcing the siblings deeper into the hall. Noah blocked a heavy blow, feeling the full brunt of its physical pressure, and poured all his strength into keeping himself from being crushed. Realizing her younger brother was about to get crushed by the enemy, Julia shouted in desperation for him to dodge. The girl gathered the last of her power and activated the second form of her black flame style to protect her comrade. A giant spear of golden fire shot straight at the enemy, softening the blow of the monster's devastating attack. The gray-armored grand boss remained unfazed and continued gathering blue mana in its mouth, getting ready for another lethal strike. Julia screamed Noah's name in utter despair as she realized the enemy's deadly beam was locked onto the young man. Noah prepared his sacred demonic style, channeling a massive amount of energy into his blade. With total concentration, the young master activated his technique, single sword, dual extremes, releasing his full offensive potential. A massive clash of light slammed into the gray-armored monster, creating a giant explosion inside the stone hall. Noah gasped for air, utterly exhausted, feeling the brutal physical strain the strike had put on his new body. The young man had hit his opponent right in the head, sending mysterious energy piercing straight through the enemy's helmet. The monster resisted and counterattacked with extreme brutality, forcing the young hero to try and defend at all costs. Noah realized how dangerous the situation was and grit his teeth as he saw himself about to be completely overwhelmed. Suddenly, a massive vortex of red fire appeared in the gap, trying to check the enemy's momentum. Julia warned him that she had just used the very last of her energy to save her brother's life and pay him back. The young man realized with growing dread that even his strongest attack had failed, and his sister's core was completely drained. Facing the enemy's terrifying resilience, Noah wondered if their only viable option left was to retreat from the battle. The giant gray-armored monster kept marching forward menacingly toward the two siblings, who were now virtually unable to fight. Noah looked into the distance in panic, wondering if they really had to face yet another monster in this place. Out of nowhere, a mysterious voice spoke up, criticizing the lack of finesse and the technical flaws in his hybrid attack. The young man went completely silent, trying to pinpoint the exact source of that strange, powerful spiritual aura. A brilliant golden light began manifesting in the air. As the voice explained that Noah's energy was chaotic and unbalanced, the young master drew his sword and demanded to know who was speaking and what mysterious realm he had just stepped into. The voice revealed that he was the successor to the divine core and advised the hero to finish this dangerous battle with a single strike. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the terrifying monster raised its giant black sword, getting ready to deliver the killing blow aimed straight at Noah. Seeing her younger brother standing dead still and unresponsive, Julia screamed in desperation, asking what on earth he was doing at a time like this. Suddenly, a blue system window popped up, confirming the awakening of the successor and unlocking the hero's divine core. Noah tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword while channeling the powerful second form of his new divine light technique. A massive pillar of golden energy enveloped the young man's body, completely illuminating the dark landscape of the labyrinth. His eyes flashed with a brilliant light as the hero activated a technique capable of tearing the sky apart with raw light energy. A terrifying sequence of golden slashes sliced through the air at blinding speed, creating a breathtaking spectacle of power inside the hall. The radiant light attack slammed into the gray-armored monster's body, causing its armor to crack under the divine force. He smirked, realizing that this was the true, hidden power of the sacred demonic core. Noah stood in an imposing stance and warned the enemy that he was about to pay them back double for all the pain they had suffered. The hero charged at the monster, manifesting blades of pure golden electricity around his metal sword. A new system window activated, indicating that the boss challenge had been officially accepted by the young warrior. Noah was suddenly transported to a vast white space where his golden flame sword blazed with intense radiance. A voice echoed, concluding that he had indeed inherited the entire legendary primordial divine core. A massive golden figure began taking shape in front of him, radiating pure divine aura and ultimate power. A majestic, handsome knight with long golden hair and wearing golden armor appeared before the astonished young master. The hero asked who he was, and the entity introduced himself as Ziku's Valmouth, bearer of the primordial divine core. The knight explained that the divine cores and demonic cores Noah had recently learned about were actually nothing more than flawed byproducts. He recounted that back in the era of the gods, invaders from another world appeared, and the divine core was created specifically to fight them. Zekas lamented that after a long war, humanity ultimately lost due to internal conflicts caused by humans themselves. He revealed that the other factions feared the overwhelming power of the divine core and decided to wipe out everyone who possessed it. To prevent this power from being reborn, the primordial force was split, giving birth to both the demonic core and the divine core. Noah understood that the two energy streams were originally one, and Ziku's confirmed that was the very reason he was able to inherit the divine core. The young man asked if humanity could have defeated the invaders in the past if they hadn't betrayed each other. With a solemn look, the ancient warrior assured him that they would have easily wiped out the enemy's entire force. Noah clenched his fists with absolute determination, thinking that with this legendary power, he could finally change the world's tragic fate. Ziku's warned him that with his core's current level, that was impossible, and he needed to defeat enemies to evolve. The young master flashed a confident, arrogant smile, showing he was more than ready to take on the challenge. The ancient hero smiled back and decided to begin Noah's training with a relatively simple task. Ziku's ordered the young master to prove his worth by first crushing the insignificant enemy standing before him back in the real world. Returning to reality, Noah unleashed a massive surge of golden fire that swept through the hall at incredible speed. The young man surged forward with absolute resolve, clashing his divine sword directly against the sharp claws of his powerful opponent. With sharp focus in his eyes, the hero swore that this time he would cut off the monster's arm once and for all. The two warriors collided once again in the center of the hall. As books flew everywhere in the gale, Noah used golden blades of mystical energy to block and bind the enemy's giant arm. The system revealed that this divine technique controlled 6 blades of light used for both offense and defense. Utilizing the terrifying speed of his new ability, the young man cleanly severed the gray-armored monster's arm. Osrek watched the entire thing, completely speechless as he realized the young master had used light itself to slash the beast. The opponent's arm slammed onto the stone floor while a golden and purple aura continued to radiate from the young hero's body. Without a moment's hesitation, Noah lunged forward and drove his blade deep into the armored warrior's chest. The young man let out a faint smirk and sarcastically noted that the tables had finally turned in their favor in this battle. A massive explosion of golden energy blasted through the opponent's armor, illuminating the entire library area. The monster roared violently in agony as it felt the purifying power burning its body from the inside. With one final vertical slash, Noah defeated the terrifying enemy, celebrating the downfall of his first major foe. The body of the horrifying gray-armored warrior collapsed onto the library floor, completely destroyed and lifeless. The hero took a deep breath, observing the outcome of the showdown while trying to calm the flow of mystical energy inside him. Suddenly, one last dangerous wave of blue energy erupted from that spot, instantly grabbing the young master's attention. Julia realized the incoming danger and screamed desperately for her younger brother to dodge the surprise attack. A giant beam of blue energy shot straight at the hero, who was caught off guard on the ground. Noah reacted instantly, activating his lightsword technique's shield to absorb the impact of the blue beam. The golden shield collided head-on with a powerful surge of energy. The clash between the two mystical forces triggered a massive explosion, obliterating the remaining bookshelves in the area. The smoke slowly cleared, revealing the damage left by that desperate final attack. To everyone's sheer relief, Noah stood up completely unscathed in the middle of the dust, proving his incredible defensive power. Julia witnessed the sight in absolute awe, totally unable to comprehend how he had escaped the blow without a single scratch. Noah raised his glowing blade and warned that he would finish off the monster once and for all with his energy. The young man unleashed one final brilliant attack, and the monster took the full force of that destructive energy blast. The beast's armor shattered to pieces under the massive volume of energy unleashed by the young heir's divine technique. The impact dissipated the evil aura, and the armored warrior collapsed, completely destroyed. Amid the ashes, a system screen appeared, confirming his victory and announcing that his divine core level had increased to Tier 2. The young man read the congratulatory message from Ziku's, surprised to realize that the ancient hero was still guiding him. The system warned that the divine core develops through combat and advised Noah to make good use of his new mystical power. Noah clenched his fist in deep thought, realizing that battle was the true key to evolution, and celebrated obtaining the new technique. Still trembling, Osrek ran over to the young master's side, asking in sheer disbelief if he had really defeated the monster. Julia stepped closer and confirmed that the enemy was gone, pointing out that the horrific curse was also beginning to fade from the area. The young girl looked down at her arm with relief, seeing that the black poisonous marks had completely vanished from her skin. Julia told the man that his wife was likely cured as well, and Osrek wept tears of joy, suggesting they head back immediately. Walking up to her younger brother, Julia commented with surprise that he looked completely different from the weak warrior he was before the trial. She stared intently at the young master with a serious expression and directly asked him where he had learned such incredible swordsmanship. Seeing him stay silent, she deduced that he couldn't talk about it and explained that there were many different styles of utilizing cores. She elaborated that the demonic sword style was the foundational base for all warriors of the Doskull family. She mentioned that the black flame style focused entirely on maximizing the user's physical offensive power. The young girl also brought up the black lightning style, whose primary focus was absolute speed and striking. Julia concluded by bringing up the Abyss style, a mystical technique specializing in deception and disorienting opponents. She pointed out that Noah's style didn't belong to any of those schools and asked her brother what he was hiding from everyone. The siblings exchanged a deep, quiet look, creating an atmosphere of mystery and mutual suspicion. Julia stopped pressing Noah, flashed a faint smile, and decided to put her doubts aside for now. She turned to leave, saying she looked forward to the day they tested their dark cores against each other in a real battle. The scene shifted to the Grand Manor. On the way back with Kyle, the hero held the Book of the Infinite Abyss, which he intended to trade for information from Eve. Upon arriving at the young informant's room, Noah opened the door only to find the place completely ransacked and destroyed. Keyes appeared in a rage and reported that he had made a mistake when he left the manor. Revealing that young Eve had been kidnapped, the blonde warrior disclosed that the person responsible was their brother Skull, who was searching for secret data on Noah. Keyes explained that Skull had likely kidnapped Eve to force her to spill all the information she held. Noah let out a faint smile upon realizing it, confirming that the villainous Skull was indeed the true mastermind behind the attackers. The young man decided they would rescue the informant, but the bodyguard panicked, realizing he wanted to challenge Lord Skull. Noah flashed an enigmatic smile and told his ally not to compare their confrontation to a dispute between equals. With cold eyes, the hero promised that what was about to begin would be nothing short of a brutal, one-sided slaughter for revenge. Feeling guilty, Keyes said he would come along to make amends for his mistake, leaving the soldiers surprised by his support. The bodyguard suggested waiting for reinforcements, but Noah argued that there was no time left to gather more troops. Tightening his grip on his weapon, the young man declared that the blade of the Dazkul family wouldn't break just because they were outnumbered. The guard accepted the order, and Noah instructed him to ensure absolute security for the manor in their absence. Showing deep loyalty, the man assured him with firm resolve that he would defend his master's home no matter what happened. With the plan set, the young master took the lead and ordered an immediate assault on the traitor Skull's hideout. Noah and Keys mounted their horses and sped off at high velocity, galloping along the dirt road leading to the rescue site. Keys hoped Eve was still safe, but remarked with full confidence that she was strong enough not to be easily subdued. Noah noticed his great confidence and asked out of curiosity why his blonde brother had chosen to become her bodyguard. Keys revealed that his own dark core had always been considered the weakest among all the family's heirs. He confessed that his power lagged behind their brothers, putting him at a massive disadvantage in the family's power struggle. The young man explained that to make up for this weakness, he had sought to learn new combat tactics and master swordsmanship. Noah finally understood the situation, realizing that was why he couldn't predict his brother's attacks before. Keys assured him with determination that he would keep fighting to grow stronger and would protect Eve at all costs. The two heirs finally arrived before the manor's gates, and Noah warned that they needed to locate Eve first. They dismounted, and the young master sternly warned that they would show no mercy to any enemy in their path. Noah gathered powerful mystical energy around his legs, preparing to display his strength through an extremely violent move. The young man unleashed a terrifying kick against the giant metal gates of the manor, completely shattering the heavy iron doors and bringing them down. The two brothers charged into the area at top speed, sliding into the courtyard with swords drawn, ready for battle. They were instantly surrounded by a large number of masked soldiers who had been lying in wait for Noah's appearance. Keys quickly recognized the enemy group and told the young man that this was Skull's elite mercenary unit. The masked warriors encircled the two brothers, and as his blonde brother warned that these mercenaries were battle-hardened veterans, their captain laughed at the situation, mocking the two fools for daring to launch a direct attack like this. Noah activated his purple battle aura and coldly warned that he had no time for henchmen, demanding that they bring Skull out. The mercenary captain grew furious at Noah's arrogance, telling the young man he didn't understand the situation. A mercenary suddenly appeared behind the hero, attempting a surprise sword strike on Noah. Without even turning around, the young man spun at the last millisecond and effortlessly parried the enemy's attack. Noah counterattacked, kicking the masked man away with brutal, immense force. The captain drew a massive white sword and swore they would show no leniency to anyone who dared challenge Skull. The young master slid across the courtyard grass, channeling electricity around his sacred sword. Noah collided head-on with the mercenary captain's blade, triggering a massive explosion of sparks across the courtyard. While Noah clashed with the commander, Keys was pinned down on the battlefield by the remaining mercenaries. He leaped into the air to dodge an attack. He summoned Black Lightning Light Slash, channeling a massive charge of electricity into his sword. A giant beam of blue electrical energy tore through the grass, striking his opponents with destructive force. Skull's masked soldiers were electrocuted and blasted backward by the relentless impact of Keys' powerful magic. Standing among the defeated enemies, the blonde youth radiated an electrical aura, challenging any other enemy to step up and fight. Noah observed the scene out of the corner of his eye and felt relieved knowing he could leave that side to Keys. The mercenary captain tried to exploit that moment of distraction and lunged forward, shouting at the hero not to look down on them. He quickly threw a spell scroll high into the sky above the battlefield. The spell scroll began to glow intensely with red fire, triggering a massive aerial summoning spell. The young man looked down at the ground and panicked as he realized a terrifying, giant red sigil was appearing. The enemy captain revealed that it was a powerful sealing technique specifically designed to counter their family. He rushed the young master, unleashing an attack packed with thick, dangerous purple demon smoke. Noah concentrated to his absolute limit, his eyes flashing purple as he tried to read his opponent's next move. The system revealed the opponent's name as Vault Grave, a formidable warrior possessing a hidden, dangerous defensive technique. Noah quickly began summoning the second form of his powerful divine combat style. However, the young man suddenly felt a horrifying physical resistance. As he tried to channel his core's power into his blade, he groaned in pain and frustration, realizing his mystical energy was being mysteriously sealed. Vaultgrave capitalized on the opening, delivering a cross-slash that forced Noah to leap backward. Noah realized with horror that his opponent's secret technique had completely sealed his dark core. The villain mocked the situation, warning the young man not to think he could beat them with mere swordsmanship alone. Keys ran to Noah's side in the center of the red magic circle, ready to support his brother in battle. The blonde youth analyzed the tactical situation and worriedly pointed out that they were at a severe numerical disadvantage in this courtyard. He grumbled about the existence of such an annoying, frustrating magic that could seal their dark energy. Keyes ordered Noah to press ahead to rescue Eve while he took responsibility for holding off the enemies alone. The blonde youth told his younger brother not to worry and instructed him to quickly finish off Skull and bring the young lady to safety. Noah accepted Keyes' request with a solemn look, placing complete trust in his brother's capabilities. The young master dodged the initial enemy attacks and sprinted at high speed toward the manor's interior. He blurred past the ranks of masked soldiers, pushing forward without looking back. Seeing this, Keyes flashed a confident smirk and warned that even if his core was sealed, he could still use powerful earth magic. He activated his stone path magic, spawning a giant stone spike that surged forward and destroyed the courtyard landscape. The stone pillar propelled the hero straight toward the manor. Keyes shouted for his ally to search the annex, as it was the most suspicious location in the estate. Vaultgrave caught the movement and desperately ordered his henchmen in the corridor to pursue Noah at all costs. However, Keyes summoned dozens of sharp stone spikes from the ground, pinning down the enemies who were trying to charge forward. The mercenary captain clicked his tongue in frustration, seeing his elite unit restrained so easily. He watched in fury as his men were impaled on giant stone spears covering the entire lawn. Vaultgrave locked his cold gaze onto Keyes, realizing he needed to defeat the blonde youth if he wanted to continue the chase. Keyes pointed his sword at the mercenary captain and challenged him to focus on a real fight with him right now. Meanwhile, inside the manor, Skull was interrogating Eve, demanding to know the secret behind Noah's new power. Tied to a wooden chair, the young girl calmly replied that his questions would forever remain futile and foolish. Skull laughed maniacally and pointed at the captured maids, asking if she truly didn't care about their fate. Eve shot back with utter contempt, declaring that having such a cowardly, useless younger brother was an unbearable disgrace, which enraged Skull, but he was cut off. As deafening battle noises echoed from the outer courtyard, Eve smiled, deducing that Noah had finally arrived, while Skull mocked his brother for daring to attack so recklessly head-on. The villain focused his hateful blue eyes, showing he was not afraid of the youngest Dawskul heir's advance. Eve proudly commented that such cowardly methods didn't suit Noah, because he possessed the single most important thing in the world. Eve chuckled mockingly, declaring that she could finally test the young man's true combat strength firsthand. Annoyed by his hostage's arrogance, the red-haired man drew his metal blade, swearing to make this proud woman pay. Suddenly, the door burst open and Noah strode majestically into the room. The young man assumed a defensive stance and calmly declared that he had come to this dangerous lair solely to rescue his sister. Noah raised his light shadow sword, glaring at Skull's figure in the center of the luxurious wooden hall. In her familiar calm and sarcastic tone, Eve smiled at her younger brother and remarked that he was a bit late. Skull pointed his silver blade straight at Noah's chest and roared his brother's name with deep-seated hatred. Noah smirked, asking if he wanted to end this. The red-haired man scoffed and challenged the young man, asking if he truly believed he was capable of defeating him in battle. Skull completely lost control and charged aggressively, launching an attack packed with dense purple demonic energy. The two brothers exchanged rapid, precise sword strikes across the grand hall, while bookshelves and texts tumbled all around them. The impact of the massive battle was so immense that they continued exchanging terrifying sword strikes in midair while falling at high speed from the top of the palace. The window glass shattered, throwing both heirs out into the courtyard. The two warriors landed skillfully on the grass and quickly backed off to catch their breath. Noah activated his mystical appraisal skill to analyze in detail his red-haired brother's true potential and power level. The system revealed that Skull possessed impressive stats and was the creator of the dangerous Abyss combat style. The young man calmly asked what Skull's true motive was in dispatching mercenaries and even using children to harm him. The red-haired man let out a derisive laugh and replied bluntly that the reason for his actions was glaringly obvious. Simply put, he found the protagonist an eyesore. Consumed by rage, the villain charged in, unleashing an insanely brutal vertical slash enveloped in purple mana. Their two swords clashed violently, triggering a massive explosion that pushed Skull back. Noah felt relieved as he realized his core seal had lifted the moment he left the mercenary captain's magic range. Skull attacked wildly, screaming that he couldn't accept trash like Noah receiving recognition from the head of the family. The young man raised his sacred blade, blocking his opponent's relentless flurry of attacks. The red-haired man roared with unhinged eyes, demanding his younger brother collapse on the spot in this family duel. Noah dodged with a flawless acrobatic flip, leaping over his opponent's head to evade Skull's lethal horizontal slash. He landed with nimble footwork, creating a safe distance from the enemy to formulate a strategy. The young master analyzed his brother's attacks, recognizing that he mixed feints with real strikes to throw off his defense. Skull warned that Noah was nothing more than a stepping stone for his victory and began channeling a massive cloud of purple smoke. The villain prepared to summon the terrifying third form of the Abyss style to obliterate the young man. He invoked Night March of the Demon Army, manifesting a giant legion of white-boned warriors across the courtyard. The white-boned monsters charged aggressively at Noah, but he swung his sword and shattered them all. The young man took a stance, beginning to suspect whether this bone army was merely a decoy. A skeleton leaped up, executing a downward slash with an old sword aimed at the young master's head. The hero instantly picked up on the attack, raising his weapon to block the bone monster's metal sword. Noah noted with curiosity that these creatures were not mere illusions, but magical summons possessing real physical mass. Seeing more monsters swarming in, the hero decided he needed to clear the battlefield quickly. Noah executed a spectacular jump, dodging the ground encirclement while channeling light energy into his powerful blade. Mid-air, the young man began summoning the second form of his divine technique, concentrating his full power into a single point. The warrior activated Twin Sky Slash, releasing a massive, destructive burst of golden light. The golden slashes covered the entire lawn, instantly severing and destroying dozens of white-boned warriors. Noah landed on the stone floor as the smoke from his divine technique began to clear from the area. The young man grumbled about the nuisance, noticing the undead starting to regenerate and rise from the ground once more. He activated his hybrid aura, channeling purple and golden electricity around his combat boots. Noah darted like lightning through the army, slicing down every opponent with high-speed, precise strikes. Ignoring the skeletons, the young man charged straight at Skull, launching a surprise attack focused on his red-haired brother. Skull blocked the hit and roared in fury, asking the hero if he really believed he could defeat his entire army. They exchanged rapid sword blows. While Noah was locked in a struggle with Skull, several skeletons tried to attack the young man from behind, but he tracked their presence in the courtyard effortlessly. With a perfect sword spin, the hero executed an all-directional attack that crushed all the white-bone intruders. Noah clashed blades violently with Skull, generating a massive burst of purple and golden energy between them. The young man pressed forward, warning his brother that he didn't care how much trash was sent his way. Repeating his fluid movements, he released more golden light blades to rip the surrounding skeletons to shreds. Skull was blown back by the shockwave and collapsed onto the ground, groaning in pure pain and utter physical exhaustion. The two enemies glared at each other, panting heavily from across the courtyard that had been completely ravaged by the bursts of power. The red-haired man drove his sword deep into the soil, channeling all his dark energy directly into the ground. Terrifying purple fissures tore through the earth, spawning jagged spikes that shot up from the ground and surged toward the hero. Noah was startled by the speed of the earth attack and quickly repositioned to avoid getting hit. Suddenly, a giant bone dragon emerged, shattering the ground under the orders of an enraged Skull. Skull pointed his sword in a fury, commanding the beast to attack and tear the hero apart. Noah observed the giant bone dragon as a surge of powerful energy began welling up around him. Flashing a confident smile, the young man decided it was time to test out his new mystical ability. A system window revealed that his divine core had leveled up, unlocking a rare eye technique. The young hero assumed a stance, preparing to activate the fifth form of his divine combat style. His eyes flashed with a brilliant radiance as he activated a special ability to control divine shadows. Noah charged toward the giant beast. Hovering in midair above the dragon, the young man focused on his next combat move. He plunged down like lightning toward the enemy, radiating a purple and golden aura. The hero locked his glowing gaze straight onto the bone dragon's terrifying golden eyes. Noah landed precisely on the monster's head. The young man stood firmly atop the beast, leaving Skull completely shocked by the absurd sight. Baffled, the villain screamed in desperation, demanding the monster destroy the hero immediately. Noah explained that his eye technique had decoded the enemy's movements and seized absolute control over it. He declared that the beast was now his slave, making the red-haired man curse in frustration and tell him not to mess around. Enraged, Skull decided to attack himself, preparing the first form of the Abyss style. The villain fired a powerful dark projectile that blasted clean through the dragon. A massive, destructive explosion of dark energy erupted, wrecking the manor's surroundings. Simultaneously, the protagonist had already circled around behind his back. Skull took a slash to his back and spat blood, forced to leap back in a hurry to open up distance. Heavily wounded, the villain admitted he had no choice left but to resort to his final measure. He pulled out a small metal flute and began blowing it, releasing black smoke all around him. A giant dark portal flanked by green lightning opened in midair, making the young man curious about the magic. Young Eve appeared, stepping through the magical passage escorted by two dangerous masked soldiers. Skull flashed a cunning smile and asked his younger brother if he really thought he could save her. A mercenary placed a blade against Eve's neck, creating an extremely tense hostage situation. Noah was utterly furious, calling his brother a coward upon seeing his sister's life in grave danger. The villain promised he would only release the hostage after destroying the hero. Noah gritted his teeth in frustration, trying to find a way to resolve the situation without Eve getting hurt. Suddenly, a giant pillar of red light crashed down from above, shattering the ground between the two brothers. Skull backed off in panic at the explosion's power, wondering who dared to interfere here. The majestic heir Damien appeared, clad in heavy armor and wielding a shield, standing right in front of Eve. Skull panicked upon recognizing his brother, while Noah observed the arrival of a powerful ally. Damien sternly warned that Eve had declared neutrality, and the succession rules strictly forbade attacking her. The red-haired man argued back angrily, trying to justify his desperate actions to win the succession race. With glowing red eyes, Damien promised he would destroy Skull for violating the family rules. The villain collapsed to the ground, cursing in sheer rage as he realized his plan had completely failed. The older brother locked a sharp gaze onto him, warning the red-haired man not to play any foolish tricks here. He reminded everyone that this was a duel to the death, focused solely on seizing the opponent's core. Noah firmly declared that he wouldn't allow anyone to stand in the way of his path to victory. Damien pointed out that interfering in the succession fight was also an offense, and that he would decide the outcome of this battle. He ordered Noah and Skull to fight with everything they had while he observed the result as a mediator. The young master drew his sword once again, inviting his red-haired brother to resume their duel in the courtyard. He sarcastically asked if his opponent could fight without having to rely on hostages and children. Skull completely snapped as he realized everyone was continuing to mock his capabilities. Skull concentrated and decided to summon the dangerous seventh form of the Abyss style. In the courtyard, he activated the shadow cloak technique, enveloping his entire body in thick purple smoke. The red-haired man charged in a rage, promising that this time he would slice the hero into 1,000 pieces without mercy. Noah realized his opponent's style focused on disrupting the enemy's mind and perception. The young man concluded that pressing the attack without leaving an opening was the best strategy to win. The two heirs collided violently in the center of the courtyard, creating electric sparks and powerful gusts of wind. Skull summoned shadow illusion clones to attack from multiple angles, aiming to disrupt the young man's defense. Noah reacted swiftly, activating his twin sky-slash skill infused with a powerful golden aura. A massive explosion of light and purple energy expanded outward, obliterating his opponent's illusions. Noah was deeply shocked upon realizing that his brother had managed to block his strongest divine attack. Giving the hero no time to catch his breath, the red-haired man prepared the fourth form of the terrifying Abyss style. He summoned Invisible Strike, causing red and black flames to flare up across his blade. Skull unleashed his secret attack, tearing through the defense of Noah, who was desperately trying to protect himself from the lethal impact. The young master mustered immense physical strength to block the blow. Pressing hard against his light sword, Noah received a faint graze on his cheek and realized that this empowered strike was completely unblockable. The young man was knocked backward, fighting to regain his balance on the ground. Skull advanced aggressively, roaring that the hero would never escape his relentless barrage of attacks. They exchanged rapid new strikes, creating a breathtaking spectacle of golden and purple light across the battlefield. Noah groaned from exhaustion under the heavy pressure from Skull, who kept pressing forward without pause. The red-haired man grew frustrated upon realizing that his younger brother had miraculously evaded a fatal injury. Noah stood his ground, raising his sword to hold back his opponent's terrifying onslaught. Massive pillars of golden light erupted from the earth, shattering the stone floor with extreme force. Skull leaped nimbly to escape the giant shockwave sweeping across the entire combat area. Noah realized that his opponent's illusionary swordsmanship and formidable defensive capabilities were his greatest strengths. Noah asked why someone as talented as him had to resort to cowardly methods in the family succession struggle. Skull roared that he had been abandoned by their father, who deemed his illusionary talents completely useless to the family. The villain explained that his deep resentment had driven him to create the Abyss style just to prove his true worth. Skull bitterly recalled the day his family completely ignored him, looking down on all his hard work and effort. Consumed by hatred, the red-haired man declared that his only remaining option was to win at all costs. With his face covered in blood, he swore to make their father acknowledge his strength through this very battle. The villain stated that he didn't mind dirtying his hands with evil acts. As a giant red pillar surged upward, Skull called an end to their conversation and ordered the young man to become the fuel for his grand victory. In the middle of their deadlock, the red-haired man prepared to summon the ninth form of the Abyss style. Releasing an immense surge of energy, he invoked Dark Destruction Dragon, creating a massive red flame monster in mid-air. The giant red flame beast hovered in the cloudy sky, spreading terror across the entire area. The red flame dragon dove at high speed, heading straight for Noah's position on the ground. An absurd explosion erupted in the center of the courtyard, destroying walls and floors with extreme force. Noah managed to protect himself in time by creating a golden light barrier to suppress the massive blast. The young man emerged standing firm amidst the golden sparks. Keeping his sword ready for the final showdown, the giant red and black flame dragon hovered right behind Skull's back, displaying terrifying power. Noah realized that his dark core had reached a critical energy limit and was beginning to overload. Skull laughed loudly, mocking his younger brother for having no chance of winning by relying solely on ordinary abilities. Without hesitation, the young man reached inside his coat. Reaching for his secret trump card, the red-haired man's eyes widened in utter shock as he recognized the mysterious item Noah was holding. The young man revealed that he had condensed his own accumulated toxins to use as a power booster. Noah placed the stabilized poison pill into his mouth, swallowing the dangerous item without a second of hesitation. Skull screamed in horror, asking if the young man was completely insane for swallowing something that could make him lose control. Consumed by rage, the hero began releasing a terrifying amount of golden and purple energy through all his wounds. Noah smiled, stating that the toxins would serve as the perfect fuel to restore his strength. A system window appeared, confirming that his divine core had reached level 20 and unlocked a new attack technique. Noah recalled his past life as Xenon and swore never to let history repeat itself in this light-filled life. Gathering energy into his blade, he decided to summon the second form of his powerful divine style. The hero activated Glorious Shadow Light, releasing an immense surge of electrified energy. He executed a downward slash just as Skull's terrifying red flame dragon lunged forward aggressively. The two massive techniques collided in the courtyard, and Noah's strike sliced the flame dragon clean in half. The colossal impact triggered a violent burst of mixed energy that completely destroyed the surrounding landscape. The terrifying shockwave blew both warriors backward into the ruined courtyard. A giant dome of destructive energy expanded across the gap, glowing with blinding intensity. A massive cloud of dust and debris was thrown into the sky by the absurd power of the strike. Damien acted quickly, using his massive metal shield to protect his younger sister from the powerful shockwave, and the giant mushroom cloud rising over the estate, marking the end of the colossal confrontation. The older brother waited for the smoke to clear, revealing a courtyard completely devastated by the clash. Damien and Eve observed the scene in shock, wondering who had survived the blast. The wind blew away the smoke, revealing the defeated Skull on his knees while the young master stood tall, with Noah pointing his blade at his opponent's neck, and calmly revealing that he had no desire to take his life. The hero ordered the traitor to surrender, but the red-haired man merely bowed his head in absolute silence. Skull pretended to accept defeat, promising to hand over his dark core, and Noah calmly accepted the agreement. Suddenly, Noah's combat instincts screamed a warning as he caught the cunning expression on his brother's face. Before the young man could react, the villain's silver blade stabbed clean through his abdomen in a fit of rage. Skull burst into a completely psychotic laugh, gloating over having tricked the hero. The villain applied more pressure to the hilt, pushing the bloody blade deeper into Noah's chest. Damien and Eve witnessed the cowardly, treacherous attack in horror. Shocked by his red-haired brother's cowardly nature, Skull screamed insanely, declaring that he would never accept surrender or kneel before someone like him. He violently pulled the sword out, screaming that no one was allowed to stand above his power. Noah coughed violently and collapsed onto the stone floor, clutching his severe abdominal wound. Desperate upon seeing the young man's dire condition, young Eve ran toward him, screaming his name. Damien firmly grabbed the young girl's arm to prevent her from interfering in the ongoing battle. Skull raised his metal sword, aggressively swearing that the battle and Noah's journey would end right here. However, Noah unleashed a final, swift slash through the air, leaving a massive gash across Skull's chest. Skull was hit directly by the desperate counterattack and fell backward, completely defeated. The red-haired villain lay motionless on the grass after taking Noah's final strike. Silence returned to the courtyard as both warriors lay on the stone ground. Noah realized with sadness that his new family preferred sacrificing their own lives in the name of pride. The image depicted both warriors lying down, representing the horrific cost of the succession struggle. Eve broke free from Damien's grip and ran desperately to kneel beside the young man's injured body. Damien warned that the wound was extremely severe, but she declared that she would use her secret magic to heal her younger brother. The young girl concentrated to her limit, releasing a bright, thick green mist over the young man. Placing both hands on his chest, she activated the first form of the Shadow Flower style. The Shadow Lantern spell spread through Noah's body, beginning to regenerate his internal organ tissues. Mystical green energy flowed rapidly through the energy pathways in Noah's arm, soothing his pain. Noah regained consciousness a day later. The young girl explained with relief that she was able to handle his core very well. The young man offered a faint smile and sincerely thanked his older sister for saving his life back there. Eve pointed toward Skull's lying corpse, declaring that the reward for victory now belonged to Noah. Skull's red dark core floated in midair, emanating a massive amount of dark energy. Noah focused his attention on the glowing orb. Realizing this was his chance to become stronger, the hero knelt before his fallen opponent's body under the calm, watchful eyes of his sister Eve. Reaching his right hand toward the core, he absorbed his opponent's dense red energy. Noah felt a massive surge of golden and purple electrical energy course through his refreshed body. With his purple eyes flashing, the young man checked the system panel, confirming his fusion with the new core. The system window indicated that his dark core had upgraded from 2 stars to 5 stars in power. Noah was surprised to discover that his dark energy had progressed by an amount equivalent to years of intense physical training. The young man surveyed his surroundings, satisfied to see that the dangerous situation had finally been resolved. Their blonde brother Keys approached the area, walking calmly now that the battle had ended. Keys admitted in surprise that he had never imagined his younger brother possessed the capability to defeat the dangerous Skull. He asked Eve if she was alright, and the young girl confirmed that she was, mentioning that Damien had saved her at the most critical moment. Keys was impressed, while Damien stood with crossed arms, stating he was merely enforcing the family laws. The older brother prepared to leave, stowing his massive metal shield onto his back. Damien walked past the young man, casting a serious, evaluative glance at the victorious heir, while the other siblings watched their ally depart with anxious, tense expressions. Damien pondered with curiosity about Noah's mysterious power, which seemed to far exceed that of a normal core. Suddenly, a white-haired subordinate approached the group, interrupting their thoughts. The palace servant formally announced that the powerful family head Victor was summoning Noah. The scene shifted to reveal the majestic architecture of the Grand Citadel, where the terrifying head of the family resided. Inside his office, Victor commented that he had heard about Noah acquiring the fallen Skull's dark core. The powerful patriarch glanced at the young master with eyes as sharp as knives, demanding confirmation of the truth. Noah maintained an elegant posture and answered directly, confirming that he had emerged victorious in the duel. Victor asked about Skull's strength, and Noah sincerely admitted that his older brother had surpassed him in every single aspect. Intrigued, the patriarch asked why the young man had believed he could win the succession struggle. Noah felt a terrifying mental pressure from his father and concentrated on delivering the best possible answer. He firmly declared that his hunger for power was greater than that of any opponent. Victor offered a subtle, satisfied smile, considering it an excellent answer from a true warrior. The family head warned that the deceased had committed unforgivable sins and swore to reward the young man. Noah seized the opportunity and requested that his reward be an assignment to carry out a mission in a very specific location. His father was surprised by his son's lack of greed, pointing out that he could have asked for fine weapons or gold. The young man replied that the gains from this journey would far outweigh any ordinary treasure. Pleased with his son's single-minded focus, Victor accepted the condition and asked for his desired destination. The scene shifted as a horse carriage traveled along a narrow, dangerous dirt road between fog-shrouded mountains. Inside the carriage, Noah explained to his two maids that this trip was not for sightseeing. The young man offered a calm smile and asked them to handle all matters related to his duties. The two maids happily agreed, promising to do their absolute best to support him on his mission. Suddenly, Lydia's eyes widened as she caught sight of a majestic, impressive view through the window. The maid waved her hands excitedly, pointing toward the horizon and announcing that their destination had appeared. Noah observed the legendary city, built through an ancient alliance between dragons and humans. This was the legendary Draconia, a magnificent city surrounded by massive mountain peaks and winged beasts in the sky. Shortly after moving forward, they were stopped by two soldiers, forcing the carriage to make an emergency halt. Stepping out of the carriage, the young man was greeted by the guards, who asked if he was the heir to the Dazkul family. The scaled warriors formally introduced themselves as official envoys of Draconia. The guards offered to guide the group from there along the rocky mountain path. Noah focused his purple gaze as he sensed a strange, hostile shift in the surrounding energy. The young man stared toward the mountain range, realizing that something dangerous was approaching. Noah smiled faintly, thanking the local envoys for the vital support they were providing. Suddenly, red ogre monsters leaped down from the hillside, roaring that they had identified their target from the Dazkul family. One of the monsters slammed heavily onto the ground, creating a thick screen of dust on the road. A pack of sharp-horned ogres completely surrounded the young master's carriage on the spot. The scaled guards panicked and drew their weapons, telling Noah to step back to protect himself. The ogre tribe was a warrior race that fought constantly for control over this mountainous region. They placed supreme value on brute force in conflicts. While the lizard folk respected order and laws, the commander explained that the beasts were trying to obstruct their mission, and Noah assured him that he fully understood the danger. The hero ordered Lydia and Selena to get inside the carriage immediately to ensure their safety before he attacked. The ogres mocked the young man's appearance, claiming that Draconia had truly fallen if it had to send such a weak child. The massive ogre leader sneered at Noah, telling him to turn back if he wanted to live. The hero merely offered a sarcastic smile at the red beast's arrogance. Noah replied to the provocation, stating that he would spare his opponent's life if he fled immediately. Infuriated by the young man's mockery, the monster called him an arrogant kid on the road. It puffed up its body, gathering power, and swore to crush every single bone in the young master's body. The ogre lunged forward, throwing a heavy punch. That created a thick cloud of dust and wind in the open area. Noah remained composed and assumed a quick-draw stance, channeling his hybrid energy into his sword. His opponent's giant fists came crashing down at high speed toward the hero's head. The young man executed a spectacular backflip, easily dodging the beast's violent charge. The punch impacted and shattered the rocky ground, leaving deep cracks across the battlefield. Noah completed an acrobatic backflip mid-air, keeping his sharp purple eyes fixed on his opponent. The monster roared in sheer fury as the young master prepared to counterattack. The hero swooped down toward the enemy, manipulating airflow to increase his fall speed and activating the first form of his divine style to release a powerful, mystical light technique. A colossal, brilliant golden sword sliced through the air, hitting the giant ogre's position directly. However, the monster dodged the attack and circled around behind the protagonist's back. Before he could react, a mountain-shattering punch was unleashed, sending his body flying backward like a cannonball. Fortunately, the main character was completely uninjured after that attack. The young man pointed out that while its power was impressive, its attack movements were far too slow. Humiliated, the monster stood back up, roaring furiously and calling the young master a foolish, arrogant brat. It unleashed a giant horizontal swing toward the hero floating mid-air. Noah dodged with extreme grace, gliding past the beast's arm with incredible skill. He executed a flawless diagonal slash with his golden blade, severing the ogre's limb in mid-air. The ogre leader coughed up blood and collapsed, defeated on the rocky floor. After his final slash, the hero looked toward the remaining monsters on the mountain and challenged all of them to come down and fight him. The young man stood in a defensive stance, facing the remaining enemies observing from the hilltop. The ogres roared in rage and began rushing down from the rocks at high speed to attack the hero. Noah calmly observed the army charging toward the ground, determined to crush the young noble. He focused and prepared the second form of his divine combat style, radiating an intense light. With fluid movements, he fired golden energy blades that sliced through all the monsters in mid-air. The corpses of the defeated ogres fell lifelessly to the ground, confirming the young man's swift victory. The Draconia guards watched in awe, acknowledging that his strength far exceeded all rumors. The two maids stepped out of the carriage to praise the hero, and Noah scolded them for disobeying his orders. Selena smiled and said it was a maid's duty to always witness her master's great victories. Noah glanced toward the mountain peak where the final enemy was hiding and revealing himself. In the sky, a majestic warrior riding a red-winged dragon was observing the young man with a serious expression. The mysterious knight clad in golden armor leaped off the dragon, diving rapidly through the cloud layer. He landed majestically, creating a large cloud of dust on the road in front of everyone. The warrior revealed that he had witnessed the entire battle and praised the strength the young man had demonstrated. He introduced himself as Adelbalt Fangray, the mighty commander of the local dragon knights. When asked why he hadn't helped, he replied that a king could not be so weak as to require saving. Noah smiled and asked if he had passed the warrior's test. The commander nodded in confirmation, and Adelbalt promised to lead the young master directly to meet the revered Lord Alcardos. The journey continued with an official dragon escort across the city's stone bridges. Selena watched in awe as humans and lizard folk lived together in harmony along the street. Two maids remarked that a kingdom with such harmony between different races was extremely rare. The guide suggested they could explore the area later, reassuring them that everyone would love this place. A majestic green dragon flew across the sky above the carriage, demonstrating the grandeur of Draconia. Guided by the warrior's lantern, they entered a cave illuminated by mysterious blue runes. The party arrived before a colossal ancient stone gate, carved with the image of a sleeping dragon. Raising his lantern, Adelbalt announced in a loud voice that he had brought young master Noah Daskul. The stone carvings glowed with a faint golden light as a deep voice echoed, ordering everyone to enter the main hall. The massive stone structure began to open slowly, revealing the darkness of the mysterious chamber. As the party stepped through the grand entrance, they were instantly greeted by a powerful, mystical gust of wind. Noah felt an overwhelming spiritual pressure and concluded that it was equal to that of his formidable biological father. Unable to withstand the crushing aura, the scaly guards collapsed to the floor, powerless to stand back up, while the two maids hid fearfully behind the hero, who stood firm against the terrifying gravitational pull. Two glowing blue eyes emerged from the darkness of the giant room, staring intently at the new visitors. A calm and majestic voice echoed through the gloom, welcoming the young heir of the Daskul family. It was none other than the legendary Lord Alcardos, a majestic white dragon, who addressed Noah as his young collaborator. The two maids and the lizard guards waited in absolute silence to pay their respects to the divine presence. Stepping forward, Noah solemnly introduced himself as the heir sent by the Daskul family. Alcardos brought his massive snout close and offered his sincere thanks for the support from such an influential family. The giant dragon focused his glowing blue eyes and whispered that he sensed a nostalgic energy coming from the young man. Noah did not smile, well aware that the Dragon Lord was a mystical deity who had existed since the world's ancient times. The young man clenched his fist, causing his dual aura of purple and gold to radiate brilliantly. Gathering all his spiritual power, the warrior released a formidable mystical presence before the Lord. Observing the light of Noah's flame from above, Alcardos confirmed the greatness of the new divine core. The giant creature was deeply moved to witness the divine light once more after centuries of utter oblivion. The Lord commanded Adelbalt to reveal every detail of the secret mission to the young Daskul heir. The commander spoke up, ready to explain the complex plea for help sent to the noble family. He revealed that their lizard race had been locked in a horrific and brutal war against the ogres for many years. The warrior explained that the regional balance of power had recently shifted in favor of the enemy. He pointed out that the ogres had enlisted an elite strategist who had ultimately shattered Draconia's defense system. Noah deduced that they were seeking help to turn the tide of the war, but the Lord warned that the mission went far beyond that. The enemy race's military commanders were aggressively moving their pieces, conquering more territory on the map. Resting his hand on his sword, Adelbalt confessed that their true intention was to put a definitive end to the conflict. The scaly warrior revealed that the task had to be completed quickly before a tragic event occurred. He shared that the venerable Dragon Lord Alcardos was very old and approaching the twilight of his lone life. Noah remained solemn, realizing that the powerful leader's remaining time was exceedingly short. The commander revealed that upon Alcardos's death, he would generate an immense source of power known as the Alcardos core. Noah recalled that in his past life, this mystical treasure had fallen into the wrong hands, causing a massive catastrophe. Resolved, the young man accepted the daunting task, swearing to prevent the core from being stolen by villains. The Lord expressed his gratitude and promised that Noah would be allowed to gather his remains as rare materials after his passing. The commander swore to provide full support for the journey and decided to disclose one more dangerous secret regarding the enemy. Adelbalt stated that rumors were circulating that the ogres had acquired the legendary Sphere of 8 treasures. Noah grew quite uneasy upon receiving news about the possession of such a dangerous mystical artifact. This mighty relic was capable of overwhelmingly amplifying a nation's military power. The hero promised to investigate the situation and planned to ask Eve for assistance in uncovering the ogre's secrets. Noah decided to stroll through the bustling streets of Draconia to begin searching for personal allies. The young man reasoned that a full-scale interracial war was inevitable, and he couldn't resolve everything alone. He wondered whether he should recruit an ancient, powerful companion he had encountered in his past life. Analyzing the ancient inscriptions carved into the plaza walls for clues about her whereabouts, he made his way toward the city center monument, hoping to find any sign of the legendary female warrior. Remembering that she used to operate in this area, he celebrated finding her sooner than expected. It was the Holy Maiden. Liliana, a powerful 9-star healer, had saved his life countless times in the past. Noah approached the young woman who was casually strolling through the plaza, feeling a surge of deep nostalgia upon seeing her again. Sensing his fixed gaze, Liliana looked back at him with expressive, bright blue eyes. Slightly annoyed, the young woman politely asked him not to stare at her like that. Liliana explained that it was still quite a while before her next musical performance at the Central Plaza. Surprised by her words, Noah listened as she curiously asked if he had come just to hear her sing. Flustered, he apologized and asked for the young woman's name. Trying to process this new reality, the young woman gripped the neck of her unusual instrument, preparing to perform. With a playful smile, Liliana solemnly introduced herself as a simple bard from this region. Noah was shocked to realize that the Holy Maiden was using the identity of a bard to conceal her true power. The system revealed that her stats were currently at 6-star level, confirming she had not yet reached her peak. Maintaining a serious posture, Noah called her name and said he had an important proposition. After listening to the full explanation, Liliana remarked that she now clearly understood the gravity of the war against the ogres. However, to the young man's surprise, she crossed her arms and firmly refused to join his combat party. Caught off guard by Liliana's sudden refusal, Noah calmly asked for her reason. Focusing her glowing golden eyes, the young woman revealed that she could sense his dark core. Liliana pointed out that a potent dark energy was emanating from Noah, causing the air in the courtyard to turn tense. To persuade her, the young man raised his arm, releasing small golden sparks of mystical energy. The Holy Maiden was intrigued to see his divine power blending seamlessly with the darkness. Liliana accepted the invitation, but set an unusual condition that left the young master quite curious. With a mischievous smile on her face, she requested that he find her the perfect romantic boyfriend. Completely shocked, Noah stammered in surprise. Unable to believe her eccentric request, the young man recalled awkward scenarios from his past life. Remembering his ally's particular preferences, she demanded her suitor be a powerful gentleman, strictly forbidding anyone who possessed a dark core. Noah smirked, realizing that Liliana's enthusiastic personality hadn't changed one bit. Thinking of the Dragon Knight Adelbald, the hero assured her that he had the perfect candidate in mind. Immediately, the young woman extended her hand to seal the partnership deal, warning that she was placing all her trust in his word. Noah shook Liliana's hand firmly, finalizing the agreement under his new identity as Noah Daskul. The carriage departed, leaving behind the majestic mountain city of Draconia. Bound for their new objective while traveling through the mountain range, Liliana asked why they were going so far, to which Noah replied that they needed to train. The young man revealed that a powerful magical artifact lay dormant within a hidden sanctuary in that region. Suddenly, Noah's sharp intuition detected a powerful threat approaching the rocky location. The pair arrived before the collapsed entrance of a dark cave that radiated dangerous spiritual energy. He activated his holy power and caught sight of something. An ancient magic circle activated upon the stone. Quickly drawing his weapon, Noah stepped forward. The young man delivered a precise slash straight into the magic circle. A large cloud of purple smoke dispersed, leaving Noah standing ready, knowing the sanctuary was extremely heavily guarded. They entered the gloom of the cave, advancing with extreme caution. The bard pointed out that the barrier served as a dire warning to anyone attempting to pass through. He teasingly asked if she was scared, but she assured him that she wasn't frightened in the slightest. Inside, the cave was filled with beautifully glowing blue crystals that illuminated the path. Noah led the way, keeping his sword at the ready for any sign of danger. Suddenly, a shadow fast as lightning cut through the air, forcing the hero to raise his weapon into a swift defensive stance. Three horned wolf-like beasts emerged from the shadows and lunged toward the party. Opening her magical support tome, Liliana stated she would handle rear guard support during the battle. A sharp-horned wolf charged forward at high speed, attempting to bite the hero with its razor-sharp jaws. Focusing his mind, Noah channeled electrical power into his blade and prepared a vertical slash. With lightning-fast movements, the young man severed both beasts mid-air using divine sword techniques. The heir smirked mockingly, declaring he could defeat such weak opponents all by himself. Thoroughly impressed by his speed, Liliana praised his combat skills. Suddenly, a massive scaly tail emerged from the cave's shadows, stealthily creeping up behind him. Realizing the fatal threat a second too late, Noah desperately shouted his new ally's name. Another giant horned wolf dropped from the sanctuary ceiling, targeting the young woman's back. The beast slammed into the ground, kicking up a thick cloud of dust, but Liliana managed to leap back and dodge just in time. Gathering momentum, the bard delivered a spectacular kick enveloped in golden light straight toward the monster. The physical impact sent the giant wolf flying backward into the rock wall, obliterating the creature. Adjusting her hat, she proudly commented that she was more than capable of defending herself, and Noah acknowledged her great strength. The young woman pointed out that she had never seen this type of monster before, and Noah explained that the cave was gathering dragon energy. He detailed that the high concentration of mana caused the local beasts to evolve in unique and dangerous ways. The girl fearfully admitted that she hadn't expected this place to be so hostile. Noah comforted his ally, reassuring her that the magical item they were looking for was nearby. Curious, Liliana asked if the object they sought was truly a powerful magical artifact. Noah explained that the mysterious relic would serve as an essential safety guarantee for the group. They picked up their pace, venturing deeper into the perilous rocky terrain of the mystical cave. The heavy atmosphere signaled that they were approaching the deepest, darkest area of the perilous sanctuary. Liliana's expressive blue eyes widened as she caught sight of something glowing at the center of the hall. Pointing excitedly, the bard gestured toward a stone pedestal where a very ancient metal sword rested. Sensing danger, Noah shouted in desperation, commanding her to stop and not touch the mystical object. A terrifying, colossal hostile presence suddenly emerged from the darkness of the blue cave ceiling. Focusing his sharp purple gaze, the young man detected the enemy's intense malice lurking nearby. Yelling a warning for her to be careful, he dashed toward his startled ally. Noah managed to scoop her into his arms at the last second, saving her from the attack of a terrifying horned lizard. A massive creature covered in sharp purple spikes roared fiercely, blocking the hero's path. The hero realized with dread that the cave's only exit was completely blocked by the monster. Opening its massive maw, the mystical creature spewed an overwhelming stream of red fire toward them. Noah cursed in frustration. Realizing that the wide area of the fire attack made standard evasion impossible, Liliana reacted swiftly, opening her mystical tome to cast a powerful defensive spell. Reaching out her hand, the bard began chanting incantations to alter the physical laws of the area. She summoned Holy Circle Barrier, creating a giant hexagonal shield in the hall. The massive torrent of fire swept across the stone hall, colliding violently with the Holy Maiden's mystical shield. The terrifying heat melted the surrounding rock, generating smoke and sparks that completely obscured their vision. The magic shield glowed with intense brightness, perfectly enduring the enemy's full firepower. Noah praised Liliana's exceptional support skills upon seeing her hold back the dragon's ferocious assault. Stomping heavily onto the stone floor to build momentum, the young man shifted into an offensive stance against the giant monster. Cloaked in purple and golden lightning, he charged relentlessly toward the massive elite adversary. Noah leaped high toward the beast's chest, preparing a final blow with his electricity-infused sword. He unleashed a devastating strike that tore through the monster's hard scales, inflicting immense physical damage. Black fluid from the purple-horned lizard splattered across the stone floor, confirming the effectiveness of his mystical slash as the beast roared in agony. It attempted to bite the intruder who was moving at terrifying speed. Noah executed a series of acrobatic spins, launching a continuous barrage that disrupted the enemy's defense. Liliana warned anxiously that the intensity of the battle was causing the cave walls to crumble rapidly. Quickly flipping through her mystical tome, the bard prepared to cast a new crowd control spell in the area. She summoned holy circle pillars, guiding chains of golden light to restrain her opponent. Electric chains bound the giant purple-horned lizard tightly, preventing it from moving any further. Liliana shouted urgently, warning that the restraint wouldn't last long and telling him to finish it quickly. Noah decided to concentrate all his sword energy into a single point to prevent a total cave-in. The monster attempted a desperate attack, swinging its massive horned tail toward Noah's position. Deftly dodging the strike, the young man activated the first form of his divine style, preparing the final strike with the blinding light of radiance and shadow. The young master's mystical sword gathered a monumental amount of power. Noah charged straight into the gaping maw of the monster, which was trying in vain to break his divine thrust. Releasing a battle cry, he delivered a divine thrust that pierced right through the opponent's armored scales. The tip of the blade guided and released the combined energy, detonating right inside the opponent's chest. A brilliant beam of purple and gold light cut through the cave, spectacularly obliterating the lizard. The young man landed skillfully as the sanctuary floor continued to crack from the massive power generated. The defeated corpse of the purple-horned lizard collapsed lifelessly to the ground, sealing a decisive victory. Noah checked to see if she was injured, but Liliana said she was fine and insisted on leaving before the cave collapsed. They ran side by side as the hero seized the opportunity to grab the legendary sword embedded in the stone pedestal. With a firm grip, the young man seized the golden hilt, which was radiating a purple glow upon the stone. Raising the mystical dragon sword high, Noah joyfully confirmed that he now possessed a powerful dispersal tool. The young man agreed with his companion and urged them to leave the perilous place before it caved in. On the horizon, dragon-riding warriors flew across the sky of Draconia, maintaining their vigil over the kingdom. Noah handed a mysterious letter to Liliana, leaving the young woman quite curious about its contents. Smiling, the young man explained that he was fulfilling his promise to introduce her to Knight Commander Adelbolt. Liliana was overjoyed by the gift and enthusiastically thanked Noah for all his help. The young woman ran off excitedly to meet the commander while the protagonist waved goodbye to her. Afterward, Noah calmly walked toward the entrance of a bustling local tavern. The hero entered the tavern looking for someone while patrons chatted merrily at their tables. The waiter approached and informed Noah that a mysterious guest was waiting for him inside. Noah was surprised by this news, wondering who this mysterious guest could possibly be. A blond young man named Keys waved from afar upon spotting the hero, displaying great familiarity with him. Approaching him, Noah curiously asked what his brother was doing there. Keys handed him a sealed envelope, stating that all crucial details of the investigation were written inside. Their intelligent ally, Eve, had investigated deeply into the Sphere of 8 treasures immediately after Noah contacted her. Keys let out a long yawn while the hero read that the dangerous artifact had recently been stolen from a neighboring kingdom. The culprit had fled toward Draconia, suggesting that the relic was intended for use in the upcoming war. The report delivered a severe warning regarding the unimaginable dangers of using such a powerful mystical item. The document stated that the sphere's power was catastrophic, capable of wiping an entire city off the map. The terrifying spell known as Meteor Fall possessed the potential to cause unprecedented destruction. Noah carefully read the details on the paper. Noah was startled to realize that this was the exact same magic that had destroyed Draconia in his past life. The message concluded with a warning that she had dispatched Keys to assist him and demanded that he return safely from the mission. The blond young man explained that besides assisting, he wanted to observe the Dragon Knight's combat style up close. He smiled and said, this is a great deal. And the young master sincerely thanked his brother for his support. Suddenly, the tavern door was kicked open violently, drawing everyone's attention inside. Liliana appeared looking furious, dragging a panicked Commander Adelbolt into the room right behind her. Pointing at Noah, the bard yelled in outrage that this situation was not what they had agreed upon. Slagging her hand on the table, she shouted that the warrior was already married, and she would never agree to get intimate with a married man. All the patrons in the tavern were utterly shocked by the girl's wild revelation. Noah tried to hide his embarrassment, realizing he had completely forgotten that the commander was already married. The commander also apologized awkwardly, asserting that he would never betray his beloved wife. Noah tried to reassure Liliana, promising to find another eligible single candidate for her. However, Liliana froze, her eyes locked on the table, falling instantly in love the moment she noticed the blonde young man sitting right there. Keys noticed her strange reaction and panicked completely, having no idea what was happening. Without hesitation, the bard dashed over and grabbed Keys' arm tightly, her eyes gleaming with passion. Liliana hugged him, declaring that he was her exact ideal type because of his amazingly toned and muscular physique. Keys was utterly flustered by the bard's boldness and tried to struggle free, wondering what was wrong with her. Noah simply stood nearby and burst out laughing, explaining that the blonde man was indeed the perfect ally he had promised to introduce. Liliana squeezed Keys' hand with immense force, leaving the blonde hero thoroughly embarrassed on the spot. The shameless girl asked if he would like to spend a romantic evening with her, horrifying the young man. He pushed her away, his face turning bright red with embarrassment, and shouted at her not to talk about intimate matters so lightly. Keys called out to Noah for help, but the protagonist just laughed, telling the bard she could do whatever she wanted with his brother. Giving a thumbs up, the hero cheerfully announced that his promise to the bard had been fulfilled. Keys tried to shove Liliana off, but the girl clung tightly to his neck with astonishing strength and determination. He pushed her cheeks away while the bard merrily assured him that from now on, she would be under his care. The blonde young man yelled in fury that he had never agreed to this crazy arrangement. Struggling to break free from her embrace, he took a giant leap to flee, running desperately from the bard's relentless pursuit. Liliana shouted as he sprinted away, while the protagonist watched the entire chaotic scene with great amusement. Adopting a serious tone, the blonde young man said he would forward all of Eve's crucial findings directly to the Dragon King. Noah agreed, assuring him that he would do his utmost during his brother's temporary absence. Before departing, the older brother gave a grave warning, telling the young man not to overexert himself in the difficult battle ahead. He warned that the terrifying Ogre King was a colossal foe whose power level was on par with their father's. Keys fled desperately to escape while Liliana screamed, telling him to wait for her. Moving swiftly, Noah grabbed Liliana's clothes to prevent her from chasing after his blonde brother. The hero advised that they had no time to chase his brother at such a critical moment, revealing that they were about to infiltrate the enemy ogre army's dangerous main base. Liliana looked at the massive village with unease, asking if he truly intended to attack that place with just the two of them. The young man explained that their true objective was to destroy the Sphere of 8 treasures, not to start an open war. Despite hearing her companion's logical explanation, the bard remained rather anxious about his plan. She asked how they could possibly slip past the dense monster guard forces throughout the village. Noah suddenly scooped Liliana into his arms, confidently remarking that ogres were very sluggish creatures. The protagonist focused powerful lightning magic into his boots to maximize his speed. Holding the girl in his arms, Noah smiled, reassuring her that they would glide past the guards like a flash of lightning. The hero dashed forward at breakneck speed, leaving only a trail of mystical light upon the stone steps. The pair swept through the entire monster village at an absurd speed, giving the enemy no time to react. An ogre guard felt a gentle breeze and a mysterious light dart past his position. Panic set in as he noticed a faint golden streak rushing toward the base's main gate. But before he could raise the alarm, his head was clean severed. It dropped right at the feet of another guard, sending him into an instant frenzy upon realizing they were under attack. Before being decapitated, the guard had managed to yell out a warning to the others. Noah realized the guards had detected their infiltration, but Liliana told him not to worry about that detail. The bard proudly revealed that she had cast a magical sound-dampening barrier, silencing all noise in the area. Noah smiled, praising the fantastic skill of his ally, who continuously proved to be exceptionally useful in battle. Thanks to the barrier, the other ogres remained at their posts, completely unaware of the ongoing infiltration. Liliana asked her companion if he knew the exact location where the monster was keeping the powerful artifact. Noah replied that the mystical item was undoubtedly hidden in the deepest area where the supreme leader of the tribe resided. The hero recalled that in his past life, Fungus was merely a coward who always aligned himself with the strongest side. The young man concluded that if this criminal was involved with the ogres, the precious sphere would definitely be guarded there. The two finally landed on the stone floor, ready to begin the most perilous phase of the infiltration. They paused before the colossal gates of the main fortress, which radiated an evil and terrifying energy. Proceeding with extreme caution, the pair pried open a gap in the heavy wooden doors to peer into the dark hall within. Noah signaled that the coast was clear, and the two quietly began descending the inner staircase. The heavy doors slammed shut automatically with a low thud, trapping the two young intruders inside the lava temple. They sprinted toward the center of the massive underground temple. Noah spotted a glowing altar, and told his ally that he had finally found the legendary sphere they had been seeking for so long. However, the protagonist suddenly halted as he sensed an overwhelming hostile presence emerging behind them. The hero instantly swung his sword backward, but no one was there. The young man realized a presence was lurking within the hall that he hadn't detected before being attacked. Right then, a voice echoed from behind, revealing that Fungus had been correct. The hero was astounded by his opponent's speed, as he had moved the exact moment Noah turned around in the hall. A giant red ogre emerged, clutching the glowing artifact in his claws, and commented that he hadn't expected intruders. The imposing warrior praised the young man's ability to slip past all the guards in complete silence. Noah readied himself for combat, knowing that confronting this giant beast would be no easy task for them. Exuding a dark aura, the enemy leader intimidatingly confessed that he despised cowardly tricks in battle. Noah and Liliana assumed their battle stances, confidently drawing their swords, the blades glowing with a powerful and majestic purple energy. The giant ogre General Gazel roared in fury, promising to crush the two intruders with his bare hands. Exuding an overwhelming dark energy, the terrifying ogre General Gazel glared down at the two young intruders. Facing imminent danger, Noah quickly activated his mystical appraisal skill to inspect the enemy. The system began processing the information, but the opponent's physical stats were hidden. Noah was thoroughly stunned to read that this powerful ogre general's physical resistance was simply unmeasurable. Sweat trickled down the young master's face as he realized he was about to face an absurdly powerful opponent. The young man decided to charge at full strength and instructed Liliana to destroy the precious artifact. As soon as he could push off with a battle cry, the hero struck the giant beast's chest with the full might of his mystical sword. Noah gave it his all, yet felt terrifying physical resistance as he attempted to pierce the ogre's armored skin. The blow failed to even make the giant flinch, and he mocked the hero, claiming his attack was as weak as an insect. Gazel scoffed at human fragility and struck Noah, sending the young man flying backward onto the ground with terrifying force using a simple, humiliating flick of his finger. The ogre general effortlessly repelled the young warrior's assault. The impact of the blow hurled Noah through the air, slamming him hard against the hall floor. A massive cloud of dust spread across the underground temple, emphasizing the brute strength of the monster. Leaning against the stone floor, the young man gasped violently as he tried to catch his breath. Following the horrific impact, a terrible crash echoed as Gazel's massive stone mace slammed into the ground near the protagonist. The terrifying monster leaped forward with raised mace, laughing boastfully as he declared that this was a true weapon. The general's mace came crashing down with fury, only to be halted at the final moment by a brilliant golden energy shield. Holding her spell tome open, Liliana channeled her total mana pool to sustain the divine defensive barrier. Gazel found this test of pure physical strength entertaining and increased the pressure against the bard's shield. Tightening his grip on the massive stone mace's hilt, the ogre general funneled even more destructive power into it. The monster's immense force crushed the barrier, spiderwebbing terrifying cracks across the golden structure. Liliana began to falter from the strain and cried out desperately to her companion. The general let out a savage grin, realizing the light shield was on the verge of shattering completely. The mystical shield exploded into 1,000 shards, releasing a violent shockwave of destructive energy throughout the hall. However, the monster's strike was still intercepted by the protagonist's divine power. The ogre was surprised to see the hero hold off the final blow even after the barrier shattered. Seizing the opening, Noah dashed forward and unleashed a diagonal slash in an attempt to wound the opponent's chest. Retreating to a safe distance, Liliana anxiously asked her companion if he was truly alright. Noah admitted he was struggling immensely, awestruck by the sheer destructive force of a single strike from the enemy. The young man gravely warned that they stood no chance of winning if they continued fighting head-on. With a resolute look in his eyes, the young master planned to use an alternative tactic to overcome their foe. He decided to gamble on a risky strategy, scattering special fragments across the stone floor. Noah asked Liliana to coordinate precisely with the plan, and the bard prepared her spellcasting. The young man threw his magic sword toward the opponent as a temporary decoy in the battle. Liliana cast Holy Judgment, summoning a breathtaking rain of golden light spears from the ceiling. Noah sprinted at full speed beneath the storm of light spears, targeting the ogre general's blind spot. Gazel laughed with supreme confidence, roaring that such weak attacks would never defeat him. With a swift swing of his mace, the monster easily shattered the light spears created by the holy maiden. The bard bit her lip in fear, realizing her strongest technique had inflicted no actual damage. Noah activated a divine power technique, focusing an intensely bright golden aura into his hand. At the hero's command, the previously scattered fragments began levitating and glowing brilliantly. The young man unleashed holy magic flying swords, catching the giant monster completely off guard with the attack. Noah shouted convincingly, warning that the beast would have nowhere to hide from their combined power. A massive pillar of golden lightning and light struck Gazel, obliterating everything around him in a violent rage. The ogre general's eyes flashed with unyielding murderous intent. Despite absorbing the spell's full force, the monster charged through the blinding light with pure malice, swinging his stone mace to tear through the air and crush the intruder. Noah did not back down, deciding to clash with the giant head-on. Sprinting toward the enemy, the young man braced himself, channeling all his remaining spiritual power into his right leg. The hero delivered a powerful kick, summoning a massive magic circle that struck Gazel right on the chin. Noah fell backward after landing the strike, but swiftly used the air currents to regain his combat balance. Quickly pointing his index finger, the hero sent his mystical sword flying toward the enemy's mid-air target. The blade flew swiftly and struck the energy sphere the ogre general was guarding in the hall. Noah grit his teeth in rage and yelled with all his might for the powerful artifact to be destroyed once and for all. The attack struck the artifact's core, creating glowing fissures and triggering a massive chain reaction. Waves of golden energy and lightning began leaking from the damaged sphere, on the verge of erupting violently. Gazel reached out, desperately trying to contain the treasure's terrifying backlash. As the violent blast threw the hero back, a blinding, destructive light enveloped both warriors' vision, signaling the activation of a massive explosion. A colossal explosion shook the temple's stone structure, unleashing terrifying heat waves everywhere. The destructive shockwave swept through the entire ogre village, sending the monsters into a panic over the sheer amount of energy released into the air. The pair was enveloped by a golden hexagonal shield to protect them from dangerous debris. Liliana breathed a sigh of relief, believing they had won. But Noah gravely warned her not to lower her guard. A savage laugh echoed through the flames, revealing that the ogre general had survived the horrific explosion. Gazel emerged imposing from the smoke, mocking the attack and dismissing the blast as a minor, amusing trick. An army of ogres swarmed toward the two heroes as they realized the danger of being surrounded. The hero prepared for a swift retreat, knowing that taking on an entire army would be pure madness. A massive stone pillar collapsed, smashing the stone floor as the monsters tried to crush their escape route. And suddenly, a giant dragon flew across the red sky. Noah smiled as he recognized the mystical creature. Keys appeared riding the mystical beast and hurriedly extended his hand, shouting for his younger brother to climb up quickly. Noah scooped Liliana into his arms once more and rushed to flee before the enemy could catch up. Rising stone pillars served as stepping stones, enabling the protagonist to leap high into the air. High up in the sky, Noah analyzed and surveyed the battlefield, planning the next moves of their journey. On the ground, Gazel laughed maniacally, holding the cracked sphere while exuding a dark aura of terrifying murderous intent. The mystical treasure sphere seemed to have spiraled out of control, proving that Noah's plan had indeed succeeded. Noah focused his glowing purple eyes toward the horizon, fully aware that the battle in this region was only just beginning. The red dragon flew toward the sunset, carrying the two young heroes safely back to the kingdom of Draconia. In the conference room, the dragon generals were surprised to see Noah return alive and asked about the artifact. Noah explained that he had delivered a decisive blow, causing the artifact's power to spin out of control and lowering its usage limit. Keys commented with satisfaction that because of this, the military situation of the Kingdom of Draconia had significantly improved. Suddenly, an express messenger rushed into the meeting room, shouting that he had an urgent report. The dragon commander panicked upon hearing the news that the entire ogre army had launched an invasion at the border. Noah remained calm and asserted that everything was going according to plan, because the ogres wanted to end the war before the artifact weakened. The hero promised to end the conflict before the revered dragon lord's life came to an end. On the horizon, General Gazel led the ogre army endlessly. A savage smile plastered across his face. Raising her hand, the female mage unleashed a brilliant golden light that radiated from the spellbook in her palm. A blessing wave swept over all the soldiers, empowering the allied forces. Buffed with increased strength, the lizard warriors suddenly became fiercer and more terrifying than ever. A red demon took a critical hit and collapsed instantly. In the heat of the battlefield, Keys and the blonde youth charged on horseback straight into the enemy encirclement. The blonde youth shouted that he would clear the path, telling Noah to just stay close behind him. In his heart, Noah was still searching for traces of the two other commanders who had yet to show themselves. The blond youth began casting, and a green magic circle appeared right over his hand. A stone spear shot forward, blowing away all obstacles to clear a path for them. Not stopping there, he activated lightning armor, transforming himself into a walking mass of electricity. With a confident smirk, it was clear that a spectacular show was about to unfold. He waved his hand, guiding the lightning-infused stone to fly forward. The stone shot straight toward the demon army at terrifying speed. Immediately, two demons stepped out to block the massive rock. Seeing this, Keys merely let out a cold smirk. "Blow up," he said, clenching his fist. A blinding explosion burst forth, swallowing up those who dared stand in their way. The force of the attack kicked up a dense cloud of dust, and a large area of the battlefield was blanketed in electric currents. Red demons lay scattered across the ground, alive or dead, no one knew. Noah spurred his horse into a full gallop, swiftly charging through the wreckage and penetrating deeper into enemy territory. The lizard army eagerly surged forward, cheering and rising like a wave behind Noah. Noah swung his sword, cutting down any demon in his path with an unrelenting rhythm. The red demon army began to panic, calling out for everyone to rally their forces to deal with this human. Noah's gaze locked onto the red demon commander, who was standing arrogantly up ahead. A brilliant purple slash cut across, clearing out the infantry surrounding the commander. He spurred his horse to leap high, preparing to unleash a powerful opening strike. As he closed in, he immediately leapt off his horse toward the commander. Noah got into position, his sword radiating an overwhelming purple and golden light. The blade struck the demon's thick hide, sending sparks flying in every direction. A sharp slash ripped through the giant's chest, catching him completely off guard. Noah frowned slightly and nodded. This guy was tougher and sturdier than he had expected. The red demon commander gritted his teeth in fury, his eyes burning with hatred as they locked onto the tiny intruder. He ordered his henchmen to surround him, but Noah stayed ice-cold and composed. The demon swung his massive spiked club, roaring in contempt at Noah's abilities. Noah looked at him as if he were the perfect test subject for a new technique he had just learned. A list of techniques popped up, and Noah began guiding the third awakening of his divine power, Divine Demon Fish Slash. The sword thrust straight into the demon commander's chest. However, the tip of the blade only slightly pierced the demon's chest without causing much damage. This delighted the commander, and he swung his weapon straight at the protagonist. Yet, at that exact moment, a smile spread across Noah's face as he whispered, "It's over." The very next second, the commander's head suddenly began to glow. Then, his entire body swelled up like a balloon being blown to its absolute limit. Finally, it exploded outright, blowing back several demons standing nearby. Noah stood there, looking completely unfazed by the explosion. The remaining red demons froze in horror, witnessing their leader taken down in the blink of an eye. Noah blew a sharp whistle, his cold eyes scanning the remnants of the army. The sound of his whistle caught the attention of everyone on the battlefield. Holding the commander's bloodhorn high, Noah loudly declared their victory. The lizard army's morale soared as they rushed out to hunt down the enemy. Still, Noah felt uneasy, wondering why the famous Oni tribe was this weak. He kept charging deep into the encirclement, clearing out the remaining stubborn demons. The red demons screamed in despair as Noah's silhouette passed through like a wind of death. After that, Noah picked a high vantage point and carefully surveyed the entire battlefield. Even though the lizard faction seemed to hold the upper hand, Noah still felt a sense of doubt creeping in. He began to realize that this was just bait. His purple eyes narrowed tightly as suspicion of a grander plot started to rise. The real masterminds hadn't shown up yet, which meant their actual target was somewhere else. Draconia. Noah gasped in horror as he realized the Dragon City was under attack. Looking down at the battlefield below from the cliff, he realized this was the only way back. Unable to wait any longer, Noah decided to carve out the shortest path himself to save Draconia. Meanwhile, another army of red demons was secretly infiltrating the Draconia Mountains. The entire city was now engulfed in a sea of flames, with corpses scattered everywhere. Naturally, General Gazel was there too. He hadn't expected them to use a precious gem just to destroy an entire mountain. Master Fungus was truly a brilliant strategist, and hearing that, Fungus smirked with pride, knowing that taking down the lizards was as easy as flipping his hand. Right as the two were stepping forward, a lizard soldier's hand suddenly clamped tightly onto his leg. He muttered softly, trying to stop the monster. However, Gazel just quietly raised his foot and kept walking without missing a beat. Fungus turned back to look at him with a mocking gaze. He then snapped his fingers to cast a spell, creating flames that burned the lizard soldier's body to ashes. "Trash really should be burnt away," he said with a laugh, while Gazel advised, "You should save your mana. After all, the real battle is about to begin. The giant monster pulled back his leg and kicked open the door in front of him, then laughed out loud and said, "Let's finish this, Dragon King." Standing before him was the Dragon King of the entire race, fully prepared for battle. He roared, "For the atrocities you have committed against my people, pay tenfold with your deaths." Dragon King Arkatos stood tall facing the demon warrior, while Seal quietly observed from behind. The demon warrior began flexing his muscles, a glowing red aura wrapping around his bulky frame. The Dragon King let out a roar, golden thunder rumbling around his mighty white horns. Two powerful entities faced off, one radiating a brilliant golden light and the other a thick red aura. Without hesitation, the demon warrior dashed forward like a blazing red arrow. He threw a punch directly against the giant dragon claw, generating a shockwave that rattled the entire valley. A burst of energy exploded right between both sides, blasting rocks and debris everywhere. The Dragon King leaned back to dodge the blow, his icy blue eyes never leaving his opponent. The demon warrior grabbed a massive boulder, his presence completely overpowering the battlefield. He swung a heavy blow, loudly questioning if that was all the Dragon King's power amounted to. The Dragon King fired back with a powerful tail whip, golden thunder detonating in midair. The clash made the ground shake violently, wrapping the whole area in a thick cloud of dust. The Dragon King soared high into the air, a terrifying electric field radiating around his wings. Sharp talons dug into the earth, tearing through the very space wherever they passed. The dragon's raw strength caused even solid rock mountains to crumble into pieces. The demon soldiers below scrambled in panic from the valley's terrifying collapse. A burst of white light erupted from the epicenter of the blast, erasing everything in sight. The Dragon King clenched his claws, golden thunder dancing menacingly without pause. Soldiers were tossed into the void among massive floating boulders. A giant mass of energy and rock caved in, crushing everything underneath. Arkatos began gathering magic right at his chest for a wide area attack. The golden light detonated, engulfing the entire battlefield in a massive fireball. A orb of light appeared, cracking violently under the terrifying pressure. It shattered into tiny fragments, unleashing scorching heat and a blinding glare. The demon warrior roared within the red aura, his power seeming to skyrocket. The Dragon King wondered silently if his aging body had truly reached its absolute limit. Sensing the tense situation, Seal immediately activated flight magic to escape the danger zone. He shot up high, his calm eyes observing the grand war unfolding below. The demon warrior and the Dragon King faced off one last time, both preparing for the final blow. The demon warrior demanded the Dragon King surrender, as the gap in their power was far too obvious. The Dragon King roared with pride, declaring he would never bow to demons. The demon warrior's eyes turned cold, knowing his opponent had chosen a fight to the death. He coldly stated that no more words were needed, his bloodlust thickening around him. "I will crush the life out of you." The demon warrior charged in at breakneck speed. The Dragon King unleashed his dragon breath, a beam of golden light incinerating everything in its path. The demon warrior charged straight through the dragon breath, defying the devastating heat to close the distance. The two forces collided midair, producing a light so brilliant it lit up the whole valley. He raised his strike high, letting out an earth-shattering roar before bringing it down. A direct punch landed square on the Dragon King, completely shattering his final layer of defense. The Dragon King was hurled forcefully into the ground, trailing a long streak of golden light behind him. The demon warrior looked down at the rubble with the gaze of an absolute victor. A massive pillar of golden light shot straight into the sky, marking the fall of the legendary Dragon King. Seal intended to use healing magic, but the demon warrior stopped him and told him to fall back. He began gathering extreme magic power, a menacing red aura fully blanketing his body. The demon warrior dove straight down toward the valley overflowing with smoke and ruins. Looking at the demon army completely overwhelming the field, he coldly declared that the battle ended here. A brilliant burst of golden and red light erupted violently from the demon leader's weapon. That power formed a massive energy vortex, preparing to grind everything nearby to dust. The demon warrior looked at the Dragon King with glowing yellow eyes. "Farewell, Dragon King." The glowing red pillar descended from above like an ultimate judgment upon the valley. The terrifying explosion formed a glowing red cross, tearing the night sky wide open. The light from the blast was so blinding it could be seen from a massive distance away. The epicenter of the attack radiated a white-hot wave of heat, burning everything in its path. The ground beneath collapsed and cracked completely under the sheer force of the destructive magic. Meanwhile, the Red Dragon General was leading the Dragon Legion, rushing frantically toward the battlefield. He froze in shock upon seeing the massive red pillar of light rising from where his master was fighting. The entire dragon army charged madly toward the valley with a terrible sense of foreboding. The Red Dragon General screamed for the whole squad to pick up the pace, fearing the worst had already happened. When they arrived, they looked down in horror at a bottomless pit engulfed in thick smoke and dust. The demon warrior stood tall amid the rubble, exuding the absolute authority of the winner. the Dragon King lay collapsed, an eerily glowing star-shaped wound right in the middle of his chest. Erupting in fury, the Red Dragon General yelled out, demanding to know what he had done to the Dragon King. He leapt off his dragon's back, swinging his massive battle axe as he charged straight at the demon warrior. A desperate scream sliced through the air as he poured every drop of his bloodlust into a suicidal strike. However, the demon warrior easily blocked the 1,000-pound axe strike using just one hand. Knocked backward, the Red Dragon General braced himself in a defensive stance, his eyes burning with fiery hatred. The demon leader coldly declared that the outcome of this battle had long been decided. He offered to spare the dragon citizens' lives if they agreed to lay down their weapons right now. Suddenly, a strange purple magic circle materialized around the giant frame of the Dragon King. A stream of dark magic surged upward intensely, signaling a sinister plot underway. Dragon King Arkatos painfully coughed up blood as he felt his power being drained from his body. A brilliant golden crystal containing the core power of the dragon was snatched away by an unfamiliar hand. Seal realized in shock what that extremely vital item was. He hurriedly reached out to stop it, but the traitor had already managed to escape with the core. The stranger sped away with terrifying velocity, carrying the treasure just stolen from the Dragon King's chest. The dragon core emitted a mesmerizing light in the hidden figure's hand. The brown-haired stranger flashed a sinister smirk, having patiently waited for this exact moment. The Arkatos core. Ultimate power is finally in my hands, he shouted triumphantly. Upon absorbing the core, pitch-black demon wings sprouted out, and his body began to undergo a violent transformation. Don't even think about it, Seal yelled, immediately activating his ultimate technique, Light Dark Flash, to stop him. A radiant cross-shaped beam of light struck straight down from above onto the traitor's position. The ground shook violently once more following Seal's powerful magic attack. He landed with sharp eyes, magic still swirling furiously around his body. However, the enemy had already drawn a blade radiating powerful purple sparks of lightning. The brown-haired stranger stood tall against the burning sky, the Arkatos core at the center of his chest emitting a blinding light to mark the birth of an entity possessing terrifying power. He flashed an arrogant smirk, ready to use the purple lightning sword in his hand to crush anyone who dared stand in his way. The 5 holy swordsmen who rushed over to control the situation were all slaughtered, a horrific tragedy revealing the mastermind behind it all. Fungus hovered in the middle of the burning sky, while Xenon below assumed a defensive stance, ready for a fight to the death. Fungus laughed maniacally as he felt new power surging through his body. The Red Demon Commander stood there with a cunning smirk, gloating at the sight of destruction. Noah's group, Liliana, and the Dragonoid General had also just arrived, horrified by the chaotic scene. Xenon stood amidst the smoke and debris, his resolute gaze locked straight on the enemy. From above, Fungus reached out his hand as golden bolts of lightning began gathering around his claws. He decided to test his new power, forming a massive crimson energy orb that radiated terrifying pressure. Countless missiles launched from the center of the orb, tearing through space as they plunged toward the ground. Those arrows rained down upon the demon army indiscriminately, hitting friend and foe alike. The entire battlefield was submerged in a sea of flames and roaring explosions. The projectiles pierced through the cliff faces, crushing everything in their path. Fungus looked down at the rubble and smiled with satisfaction, as this was the very power he had always craved. The Red Demon Commander screamed in horror, bewildered as to why his master would attack his own allies. But to Fungus, these subordinates had outlived their usefulness, so he coldly declared that they were no longer needed. He snapped his fingers with absolute contempt. The ground beneath the Red Demon exploded, sending rock and dirt blasting everywhere. The Red Demon shrieked piteously as the magical pressure crushed him amidst the rubble. Fungus's face twisted in madness, swearing he would make those who had once abandoned him suffer the exact same pain. This time, he would trample over everyone to assert his dominance. Another earth-shattering strike crashed down, crushing the Red Demon deep into a crater. The arrogant commander was now nothing more than a lifeless corpse amidst the ruins. Fungus looked off into the distance, deciding his next target would be the destruction of both the Dragonoids and the horse-racing demon tribe. Noah immediately cast the Great Stone Rage Flame spell, revealing a brilliant green magic circle in the sky. A massive boulder plunged from the heavens as if intending to crush Fungus to pieces. Liliana followed up with the Sacred Crystal Treasury spell. Determined to bring down the enemy, an emerald crystal shot up from the ground, forming a pincer attack with Noah's boulder. Fungus merely uttered a contemptuous "oh" as he watched the combined strike. 2 streams of magical power collided violently at his location, creating an apocalyptic explosion, yet Fungus needed only to spread his dragon wings to stop the entire assault cold. Channeling energy into his claws, he effortlessly crushed their magical constructs. He sneered and coldly ordered everyone to scram. A massive pillar of light erupted from Fungus's position, blowing everyone away. Armed with the power of the Dragon King and ultimate arcane knowledge, Fungus believed he was the strongest being in the world. Countless magic circles appeared behind his back, firing off a rain of light swords. Countless magic circles appeared behind his back, firing off a rain of light swords. Fungus gave the enemy no time to rest, following up with a heavy punch aimed directly at Noah. Blades of light plummeted toward the ground, leaving Noah racing against death as he dodged through a forest of swords, desperately seeking a narrow escape. Watching the rain of swords fall like a waterfall, Noah began to break out in a cold sweat. He swung his sword to parry the incoming blades, but the sheer volume gradually pushed him into a severe disadvantage. Noah tried to endure Fungus's sword rain, doing everything he could to avoid getting hit. He gritted his teeth and held on, the pressure from the attack causing him to break out in a cold sweat once more. A massive black greatsword crashed down. Noah tried to block with his blade, but the ground under his feet cracked wide open. Noah tried to block with his blade, but the ground under his feet cracked wide open. An overwhelming wave of energy blasted Noah backward, leaving him only enough time to let out a desperate cry. In the moment of crisis, the Dragonoid general rushed forward and used his great shield to cover Noah, attempting to withstand the deadly beams. Wild yellow electric sparks flashed furiously around the shield as Xenon's sword was knocked into the air, burning brightly amid the rain of swords. Xenon shouted in shock, his face filled with extreme worry for his comrade. He looked up at Fungus hovering in the air, radiating a terrifying intent to kill. Xenon's gaze hardened. He knew he could no longer hesitate, so he darted forward like an arrow, dodging the purple lightning bolts destroying the ground. Fungus sneered and reached out his hand, preparing to finish off his opponent. Fungus's sword rain poured down like a waterfall, forcing Xenon to weave through the tightest openings. He focused all his mana into the dual sky slash technique, causing a purple and golden glow to erupt around his blade. Xenon's holy magic eyes lit up, allowing him to see through every attack trajectory. Xenon swung his sword, shattering the surrounding blades of light. A massive explosion went off nearby, but Xenon managed to escape the danger zone in time. Xenon held his ground against the rain of swords, feeling his strength gradually draining away, when from behind, Noah opened a large magic circle and yelled for Xenon to use it. Seizing the opportunity, Xenon slipped through the forest of swords and charged straight toward Fungus. Fungus didn't flinch at all, continuing to rain down an even more powerful Crimson Sword barrage. Xenon reached out, deciding to stake everything on this final attack. A brilliant golden pillar of light enveloped Xenon, boosting his speed to the absolute maximum. A giant energy greatsword crashed down, tearing open the night sky as Fungus's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected his opponent to still have enough strength to counterattack so fiercely. Liliana opened her spellbook and began chanting support spells for her comrade, creating a honeycomb-shaped barrier, the holy light domain, that blocked Fungus's sword rain. Liliana shouted loudly, urging Xenon to end the battle. Thanks to Liliana's support, Xenon ripped through the barrage and charged straight toward Fungus's heart. Xenon performed the light-dark flash move, creating a blinding flash of light that swallowed up the space. Fungus sneered, confident that he had neutralized the move, mocking his opponent as monkeys incapable of learning. An apocalyptic explosion occurred as the two sources of energy collided. Xenon gritted his teeth, forcing himself to hold out against Fungus. The two were locked in a fierce struggle amidst the dust and smoke. Blades of light flew wildly, tearing apart everything around the combat zone. The smile on Fungus's face suddenly vanished. A sense of unease washed over him as a sharp blade flashed in a split second. Xenon pierced through the rain of crimson shards, closing in on Fungus at an unimaginable speed, causing Fungus to scream in panic. He failed to react in time to this sudden turn of events. A dull squelch echoed as Xenon drove his sword straight through Fungus's chest. Fungus looked down at the wound in absolute shock, blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. The blade pierced right through Fungus's back, putting an end to the traitor's power expansion. Xenon stood motionless, holding his sword after taking down the enemy. Liliana watched him from behind with trusting eyes, while Xenon smiled victoriously at Fungus's collapse, mockingly bringing up his blind arrogance regarding the dragon power. The valley battlefield shook violently, while down below, Noah and the Dragonoid general could only watch in horror. Liliana held her spellbook, her eyes filled with worry yet remaining calm as she continued to support her comrade. On the ground lay the corpses of White Dragon Arcados and the Red Demon, motionless amidst the ashes of the battle. Fungus screamed in agony as he felt his power slipping away from his hands. Xenon appeared right before him, decisively declaring that he had reclaimed Arcados' core which Fungus had stolen. Fungus's eyes widened, unable to believe his perfect plan had shattered like this. Xenon swung his sword, decisively severing the dragon energy from the villain's body. He held the Dragon Realm sword high, explaining that it was a special treasure used to seal away dragon power. Fungus went practically insane, screaming and demanding his power back immediately. He lunged forward with sharp claws, but they were now nothing more than hopeless flailings. A mere wave of Xenon's hand was enough to send Fungus crashing into the ground, cursing relentlessly. Xenon looked down coldly, believing that the power of the Dragon King was not something a person like him could control. The giant rock fungus had been standing on collapsed, generating a massive shockwave that shook the ground. Xenon landed gently amidst the thick dust, the sword in his hand still radiating an overwhelming presence. Fungus lay sprawled on the ground, clutching his bleeding wound, his eyes filled with hatred over being thwarted. He refused to admit defeat, and a complex magic circle began to glow beneath his feet. In the sky, a series of magical formations appeared, locking directly onto Xenon's position. Deadly beams shot down like rain, determined to crush him in a split second. Xenon stood unmoving, allowing the attacks to rush past him. A massive explosion erupted right where he stood, with rising smoke and dust blocking all visibility. But when the smoke cleared, Xenon emerged surrounded by a brilliant aura, his spreading magical pressure striking terror into Fungus. The villain slumped to the ground, trembling before the overwhelming gap in power. Xenon delivered a decisive sword strike, sending a brilliant golden arc tearing through the air toward its target. The sharp blade ripped open Fungus's chest, sending fresh blood splatter everywhere. Fungus was blasted far away, lying motionless on the ground covered in twilight dust. Despite being heavily wounded, he still managed to crack a sly smile, telling Xenon not to expect such an easy victory. Fungus attempted to activate a dark forbidden spell, swearing to drag the entire kingdom down to hell. A stream of deep purple magic erupted as Fungus accepted sacrificing his life in exchange for one last strike. His face twisted in madness as he screamed for the power that was devouring him. A crimson pillar of light shot straight into the clouds, generating a massive vortex of magical energy. The sky began to crack as red lightning pierced through the dark clouds. A giant astral rain magic circle appeared above, blocking out the sun entirely. A vast mountain region was blanketed by the deadly purple aura of the forbidden spell. Xenon's expression shifted slightly as he realized the scale of the attack was far beyond expectations. Burning rocks from outer space began falling into the valley like rain. Terrifying explosions echoed everywhere, with rising dust obscuring the sky. Right at that moment, a glowing yellow honeycomb barrier appeared, shielding the central area from the meteors. The Dragonoid general turned to Noah, confirming they still had time to deploy defenses based on the information Xenon provided. Meteor fragments slammed violently against the protective barrier. Fungus lay in a pool of blood, laughing crazily as the astral rain disaster began ravaging everything. Both Liliana and Xenon looked up at the sky, where the true disaster still hung precariously in danger. A massive burning meteor tore through the clouds, plunging straight toward the fragile defenses below. Fungus laughed insanely amid the rain of fire, declaring that everyone here was out of options. The giant meteor was falling with unstoppable destructive force, his face was covered in blood, his eyes full of hatred and cold satisfaction as the image of impending destruction drew near. Indeed, the power of astral rain was too overwhelming, and in a split second, the defensive honeycomb barrier was crushed by the giant meteor. Dust rose high into the sky as terrifying pressure weighed down on Noah and the Dragonoid general standing below. Noah screamed in horror, urging everyone to run as he watched their final line of defense crumble. He couldn't believe the power was this terrifying, while the Dragonoid general roared in anger and helplessness, wondering if they really had to abandon the country and flee. Noah gritted his teeth, knowing that if caught in the debris, they would all be turned to ashes. Xenon stood there, his sword still sparkling brightly, yet he realized that with only his current Kamui core, he couldn't dispel this catastrophe. In that decisive moment, Liliana stepped forward and called Noah's name, having made a daring decision with resolute eyes, ready to place all her trust and power in him. Liliana secretly swore she would not let these lives wither away here, no matter the cost. Even if she had to lose all her maiden power forever, she wouldn't regret it at all. Liliana opened her spellbook wide as a brilliant golden light began to envelop her body. A pillar of pure light shot straight into the sky, dispelling a portion of the darkness covering the battlefield. In the blinding light, Liliana appeared in the solemn form of a high priestess, her eyes closed in prayer. Her body emitted a warm, powerful energy ready to be transferred. Liliana whispered for Xenon to accept this power. A tear rolled down her cheek amidst the radiant pillar of light as her maiden power flowed into Xenon, creating a shockwave that shook the ground. She told him that the rest depended on him before becoming completely exhausted. Liliana's glowing soul swooped down to embrace Xenon in a hug of sacrifice and trust. Two opposing energy sources began to blend, creating a blinding explosion of golden light at the center of the battlefield. The pressure from the resonance seemed to crush the surrounding space. Everything was submerged in a dazzling yellow hue as Liliana collapsed to the ground, completely unconscious after offering up all her life force. Xenon stood firm, surrounded by surging holy energy. He declared his acceptance of the entrusted power, the Kamui system interface appeared, confirming that a massive amount of holy power had been loaded and his power limit was officially released. Xenon clasped his hands in prayer, activating the ultimate technique known as Kamui form absolute logic. His sword transformed into a giant blade of light, radiating a force capable of ending the world. The star extinction move was ready, Xenon's eyes cold and sharp. He focused his entire mind into this fateful strike. With an earth-shaking roar, he swung his sword directly at the massive meteor hurtling down. The slash of light soared toward the sky, colliding violently with the astral rain disaster in a globe-shaking explosion. The brilliant golden cut sliced through the meteor's core, causing it to explode into millions of pieces in midair. The pressure of the explosion vaporized all falling rocks, saving the valley from destruction. Xenon hovered in midair, his sword still emitting powerful purple and golden electrical sparks after the strike. The sky gradually brightened as the astral rain disaster was completely dispelled by the divine slash, and Xenon slowly descended to the ground with an utterly calm expression despite having just performed a miracle. Around him, Liliana, Noah, and the Dragonoid general were all safe, though still stunned by what they had just witnessed. Twilight settled over the dusty valley, marking the end of a brutal battle. Xenon stood looking around, gently declaring that it was finally over. Fungus lay unconscious amidst the rubble, completely defeated and miserable after his final effort. Suddenly, a deep voice praised his glorious attack, calling him the successor to the power of Kamui. Xenon turned around in surprise as through the mist, the spirit of Dragon King Arkatos appeared in majestic dignity, staring closely at the young swordsman who had saved them. Dragon King Arkatos had collapsed on the ground, and Seal slowly walked over to the dying Dragon King. Arkatos's deep blue dragon eyes stared intently at the young man before him. The king called Seal the Sword of Dazkul with deep respect. Seal's gaze flickered with a hint of thought as he looked at this legendary creature. The wounds on Arkatos were too deep, and it was perhaps far too late to save him. Seal responded humbly, believing the credit belonged to the Dragonoid race and Adelbart. But Arkatos didn't think so, extending his claw to entrust his source of power to him. He drew his sword, preparing himself for the crucial succession process. From the void, a radiant pink energy sphere materialized directly above the sword. This was the core of Arkatos, the object housing the Dragon King's terrifying power. He suddenly remembered his past life, when this core had been corrupted and forced to be destroyed. Memories of humanity's massive military losses back then were still vividly burned into his mind. But this time was different, as the war had ended early, leaving the Dragon Core completely pure. Everything was proceeding exactly according to the plan he had laid out from the beginning. By speeding up the battle, he had preserved the ultimate power to face future invaders. Arkatos began transferring energy directly from the core to him. A brilliant golden light erupted, enveloping them both amidst the desolate valley. Focusing intensely, he prepared to receive the massive influx of energy surging into him. The core had now turned a flawless golden color, hovering suspended in midair. The Dragon King marveled at the young man's extraordinary foresight. He decided to place his trust in him, entrusting all his remaining power to his care. For his own children, this level of power was simply too heavy a burden to bear. The old Dragon King's eyes reflected absolute faith in his successor. Asserting that only the wielder of the divine core truly needed this power, Seal bowed his head and accepted the sullen responsibility the Dragon King left behind. Arkatos smiled with relief, gazing upon the continent's new hero. The radiant golden core slowly merged directly into his chest. The Dragon King's massive body began to gradually dissolve into particles of light. Rays of light radiated outward like the final farewell of a legend. The system announced the successful inheritance, sending his stats soaring to an entirely new height. Seal felt the Dragon King's authority surging within him as glowing horns of light took clear shape atop his head. Rushing over from afar, Adelbart screamed his master's name in utter despair. He froze in his tracks, horror-struck as he witnessed the Dragon King slowly fading away before his eyes. Arkatos used the last of his breath to call out the name of his most loyal retainer. That was when he issued his final command to the Dragonoid general. Adelbart listened in silence, his eyes brimming with tears. Dropping to his knees, he swore to carry out whatever the Dragon King desired. Looking toward the Dragonoid soldiers supporting one another in the back of the valley, Arkatos instructed him to focus all their strength on rebuilding Draconia. Adelbart burst into tears, promising faithfully to fulfill this grand wish. The giant silhouette of the Dragon King vanished completely into thin air, bringing an end to a legendary era. Dragon King Arkatos died content, having passed his will on to the next generation. He passed away in peace after witnessing his children grow strong and resilient. Amidst the cracked earth, a tiny sprout began to bud, symbolizing a brand new beginning. The old king's sacrifice would serve as the foundation for the Dragonoid race's glorious future. With nothing left to regret, the old king's spirit dissolved into the deep blue sky, officially transferring all remaining duties to Seal. The scene at Draconia drew to a close, opening a grueling new chapter at the Dawskul Manor. Seal returned to face his powerful father and report everything that had transpired. Standing in the main hall, he recounted the battle and the elimination of the S-rank criminal. He didn't forget to mention the newly forged friendly relations with the Dragonoid race. Patriarch Noah fell lost in thought, taking note of Dragon King Archidos's official passing. The departure of a legend made the atmosphere in the hall grow even heavier. Standing before the throne, Seal maintained his usual calm composure. Noah stared deep into his son's eyes, trying to unearth the truth behind the reports. He praised the feat of saving the land of Draconia, no small achievement. Still, Noah expressed skepticism regarding whether Seal had inherited the dragon's power. Instantly, he reached out his hand, preparing to unleash a strike to test his son's true strength. A dense aura of deep purple magic erupted, blanketing the entire room. Seal stood firm at the eye of the storm, his eyes showing not a trace of fear before his father's overpowering presence. This power was so immense that the surrounding knights began to gasp for air. Noah didn't hold back at all, intending to use mana to force his son to reveal his true nature. The entire main hall shook violently under the terrifying pressure of the patriarch. Unable to stand idle any longer, Seal began drawing upon his newly acquired Dragon King power. A brilliant golden aura radiated brightly as wings and horns of light materialized behind his back. Noah froze for a split second upon seeing his son stand his ground against his authority. The two forces, purple and gold, clashed head-on, creating a terrifying spectacle. Standing tall in the midst of the surging mana, Seal proved he had fully mastered his new power. The pressure was so intense that large cracks began appearing across the surrounding stone pillars. Unable to withstand the pressure, a nearby knight collapsed onto the floor in agony. Watching the scene unfold, Kyle was utterly stunned by Seal's meteoric growth. Noah clenched his armored fist, sensing the undeniable truth right before his eyes. Electrical crackles of mana hissed through the air as neither father nor son backed down. The entire hall lay in ruins under the destructive clash of the family's two highest authorities. Noah cracked a mysterious smile, seemingly having found the answer to his doubts. Seal maintained his Dragon King form, ready for whatever scenario came next. At this moment, Noah ordered Kyle to quickly evacuate all soldiers from the main hall area. He reached out to grasp his massive demon sword as the deep purple mana surged violently once more. Unsheathing his blade, Noah's intentions were now abundantly clear. He wanted to personally test his son's true strength through a direct duel. Seal drew his blade as well, his dragon horns blazing bright as he prepared to face his powerful father. In the vast training hall, the two Dawskuls stood facing each other, preparing for a true battle of strength, while Knight Kyle watched from afar, unable to hide his grave expression. Breaking into a cold sweat, Kyle's face grew extremely tense as he felt the suffocating atmosphere wrapping around the room, silently muttering that this earth-shattering battle had finally begun. Seal took a deep breath as the mana around him began to fluctuate violently. Noah stood as immovable as a mountain, his cold purple eyes observing his son's every move. Seal decided to go all out to test his new power, his Dragon King authority bursting forth instantly as his radiant golden energy horns and wings took shape. Seal's gaze sharpened, mentally borrowing the authority of the divine dragon Archados for his opening attack. Stomping his foot down hard, he generated a surge of golden fire rolling beneath his heels. Seal shot forward like a bolt of lightning, bringing down an airborne slash, but Noah calmly raised his sword to block without flinching. Noah's demon sword vibrated upon direct impact with Seal's mighty blade. The two forces clashed, sending sparks flying in midair. A massive pillar of light erupted at the point of engagement, sending shockwaves echoing across the training hall. Stone pillars cracked under the terrifying pressure as Noah felt secretly amazed that Seal could manipulate the Dragon King's power so skillfully. Knocked back a few steps, Seal looked surprised by his father's sheer solidity. Noah smirked, praising that the last hit was actually pretty decent. Seal instantly reset his stance, his glowing eyes preparing for the next wave of attacks. Moving at breakneck speed, he created a series of golden afterimages surrounding Noah. Noah narrowed his eyes, calmly tracking his opponent's slightest movements. He unleashed a lightning-fast counter, his purple mana surging brilliantly. The impact blasted Seal backward, blowing the ground beneath his feet into fragments. Seal flipped through the air and landed on his golden wings, his eyes still filled with shock, while across the room, Noah's blade radiated an imposing purple glow. Reaching his hand forward, Noah began activating a terrifying power that warped the space around them. Seal felt his body weight skyrocket as his golden mana was compressed to the point of fading away. The terrifying gravitational pressure shattered the stone floor beneath Noah's feet, sending dust blowing everywhere. Noah glared with absolute authority while Seal felt secretly horrified upon realizing his father could manipulate gravity itself. The entire training hall trembled violently under Noah's deep purple gravitational field, pinning Seal to the floor as he barely managed to keep his balance. Seal gritted his teeth, sweat dripping as he fought against the 1,000-pound weight. His feet sank deep into the rubble, purple mana wrapping around his legs like heavy shackles. Noah stood like a god, controlling the gravity field to smother every attempt Seal made to resist. Focusing his energy into the magic core in his chest, Seal tried to find a way to break free from these invisible chains. He was stunned to see his Dragon King authority crushed so effortlessly right beneath his father's feet. Noah criticized Seal in a cold voice, stating his control was far too weak and that he wasn't worthy of claiming he had mastered the power. Goaded by the words, Seal roared, erupting a massive burst of golden mana to shatter the gravity pressure while asking his father how he liked this move. Seal shot forward like an arrow of light, piercing right through the warped space. A barrage of radiant golden light beams blasted toward Noah from every direction. Noah maintained an emotionless face, his purple eyes sparkling as he watched the incoming beams. Closing the distance, Seal swung his sword in a full-power slash, compressing all his mana into the strike. The explosion of golden and purple energy merged together, completely destroying the surrounding floor. Noah praised Seal in his mind, seeing that he not only blocked the strike but also knew how to redirect the entire impact force into the ground to minimize damage, noting that dragon power had expanded his son's combat style. The terrifying pressure carved out a deep crater, with thick smoke rising beneath their feet. Seal shot up into the air to escape the shockwave, while Noah stood firm in the center of the crater with an easygoing demeanor. Night Kyle ran away for dear life in utter panic so he wouldn't become an unfortunate victim of this crazy spar. Watching from above, Night Kyle couldn't hide his shock at the vastly superior level Seal was displaying compared to before. In the middle of the training hall, Noah and Seal continued to face off, surrounded by the radiant mana streams of the Dragon King state. Noah quietly observed his son, knowing full well that this was definitely not his absolute limit yet. Seal immediately executed a continuous combo of divine sword arts, ranging from Heaven-Earth Annihilation to Holy Demon Blast, creating a grand spectacle. With his matured magic core, Seal felt confident he could cast multiple high-level techniques simultaneously without any trouble. A brilliant golden energy explosion erupted the moment Noah took the powerful combo head-on. Radiant golden light trails heavily bombarded Noah's position, sending dirt and stone fragments flying everywhere. However, Noah stood as firm as a rock, the purple mana around him surging more violently to strike back. The Patriarch of Dazkul activated a solid hexagonal mana shield, effortlessly neutralizing every attack trajectory coming from Seal. Noah coldly pointed out Seal's weakness was attacking too head-on, while Seal was still trying hard to spot even the smallest opening. Suddenly, Noah extended his hand, concentrating dense purple mana into a terrifying pressure right in his palm. A lightning-fast counter-strike blasted Seal up into the air, stripping him completely of his momentum mid-fight. Refusing to surrender, Seal shouted at the top of his lungs, pouring all his strength into a decisive downward strike from above. His blade slammed violently against Noah's defense, generating a terrifying shockwave that shook the whole building. The blinding energy explosion tore through the air, obscuring the vision of everyone present in the training hall. As the smoke slowly cleared, Noah was still standing tall, his sword neatly returned to its scabbard. Seal stood stunned as he realized his father had neutralized his full power strike using purely raw magic core strength. He stared silently at Noah, in awe of the power of the man dubbed humanity's strongest swordsman. Though still bewildered, Seal got back into stance, preparing for another technique of the divine sword arts. Yet, he suddenly paused when he saw signs that Noah wanted to end the fight right here. Noah officially called off the match, leaving Seal to lower his weapon in confusion. He calmly sheathed his sword, the tense atmosphere gradually easing with every breath they took. Seal asked in disappointment if what he had worked so hard to display still wasn't enough to satisfy his father. Noah looked at him sternly, asserting that with his current level, he still couldn't reach his tier. However, he pulled out a letter sealed with red wax, declaring that Seal had earned enough qualification to receive it. Seal was completely shocked when he saw the writing on the letter. It was an invitation from the Demon King himself. Noah elaborated that this was the ruler of the mysterious and terrifying Demon Continent, revealing a family secret. The Dazkul house had been closely linked to the Demon dynasty for generations. Seal wondered aloud why his father decided to hand such an important item to him right now. Standing tall in the hall, Noah stated that the Demon King never cared for the weak, and receiving the letter meant Seal had caught his eye. He instructed Seal to prepare to depart and uncover the hidden secrets lying ahead. Noah spoke of the truth behind the invaders targeting this world and the fateful bond connecting generations of swordsmen. Seal fell deep into thought, his face resolute before the heavy responsibility he had just been entrusted with. Terrifying visions of war and corpses scattered across the ground flashed in his mind. He also saw an image of a purple-haired girl shedding tears, silently calling out Xenon's name in despair. Streams of fiery red mana and shadowy figures materialized, signaling the dangers waiting on the demon continent. Seal gripped the letter tightly in his hand, his heart filled with determination to uncover the ultimate truth behind everything. Beneath a blood-red sky, Seal gazed toward the horizon, ready to embark on his destined journey to find the truth about the invaders.